Welcome to this special commemoration edition 9/11 special coffee with yours truly, Dragon. First and foremost, I will to commence by lighting this special incense for North American unity, for my own healing as I'm still continuing my healing journey, and all those involved and beginning their fitness journey, beginning their healing journey, and always with gratitude. I gotta give thanks because I am beginning a new 40-day journey today, beginning a new 40-day till October 22nd, cleaning, purifying my room, office, and temple while also in parallel auctioning 93% of everything which own here. 93%. Yours truly with this red hoodie, encouraging all to work out, train, exercise. Working out, training, exercising has been, is, and will be my medicine and therapy of choice. Thank you to my anonymous friend who deserves to be 7 times richer than Taylor Swift. And this rainbow dragon is a Swifty with that rock and roll for the farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, LOVR firefighters, LOVR truckers, LOVR butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, those in the daycares changing some of those diapers. Our forces, NORAD, NATO, support the dream, the dancing goddess, and the dragon kingdom, which is, of course, my initiatives, protocols, of course, for the initiation of a new North American collective rebirth. Right from the lair of the dragon in Hawk Island, Montreal, gotta begin commence with my gratitude. Grateful, thankful that I paid my rent for the month of September, paid my rent, paid my electricity bill, got food and coffee, not perfect, far from a rainbow dragon rock and roll. 24/7 for the farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, those truckers on the road, firefighters, those construction workers going on those steel toes on the cranes. Gotta salute, we need some more skyscrapers to build and we need some dams, and gratitude does wonders for my mental health. So I'm gonna light this special incense for the forgotten goddess, because my will is to build a temple. The forgotten goddess, Goddess goddess temple. You heard that correct. You know, I'm a spiritual teaching student. I don't know all the answers. I have a lot of questions, but the sun is my pope and my spirituality is rock and roll. Today, 9/11, gonna light this special incense, gonna say some meditation. And to my brothers and sisters in the USA, you know, I rock and roll because I was born in the USA 3 times in parallel lives, past lives, incarnations. You know, as I do believe in past incarnations, I'm a believer in reincarnations, and I served twice in 2 different wars in the United States Army, and 2 different wars in the United States Army. Was born once as a woman, twice as a man. So sometimes as a man, sometimes as a woman in my past incarnations, previous lives. But right now, you get that 50-50 rainbow dragon rock and roll, encouraging all to work out, train, exercise. Dancing is my favorite sport, and rock and roll for the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, all involved in the production, distribution of food. We're gonna rock and roll over time, and right from the lair of the dragon from Montreal, Hawk Island, HAWK, sending some LOV, because it's not all about fighting. Sometimes you gotta get that loving. It's not all about fighting. Sometimes you gotta get that LOV. Whoever wants love with consent and hygiene, Rainbow Dragon sending some trillions of kisses, which I got credited from the forgotten goddess GODDSS, who dances with her brother's son and helps support build the 3 buildings which yours truly wants to build, wills to build right here in Montreal. The pyramid house of the dragon. All I need is 3 rooms, sleeping quarters, red, scarlet, red, crimson. House of the Dragon in parallel, of course, the Forgotten Goddess Temple. Yes, at GODDSS. I'm not perfect, far from it. Piece of dust, although I guess some rock and roll initiatives, protocols, philosophies. Yours truly, right here on this September 11th, gonna extinguish safely this incense. Gonna say some blessings for health, for regeneration. To all my willingly loving allies and armies, pledge your allegiance, legions, thou art family, rock and roll, freestyle, unscripted, unedited, raw. Rent's paid, although financially stressed. I'm joyous, although financially stressed. My only stress now is financial, although I'm open for business. But I have Asperger's, so I might repeat things twice, 3 times. And geopolitics is my obsessive interest, and I am an independent geopolitical analyst and theorist who has predicted the current international conflagration and everything, mostly in a general manner. Everything that you see now, witnessing in the news and hearing about geopolitical events. And today is a big geopolitical event because, of course, there's a new drills, joint drills, Russia, China in the Pacific and in 5 different seas and the oceans, in the Mediterranean Sea, Caspian Sea, Indian Ocean, and Pacific. And of course, the Russian joint Russia and China joint naval drills have commenced, called, I believe, 2024 joint naval operations, and different code names or whatever name they be giving, of course, secret names. And yours truly here, Rainbow Dragon General, Rainbow Dragon, aka Clit Dick Dick Clit. Yours truly to encouraging all to work out, train, exercise. And we're gonna put some honey, let's see, honey in the coffee with yours truly, Dragan. Please, Wall Street, give some charity. If you make a million, give 25,000 to 4 different charities. That is the equivalent of 100,000, which is the equivalent of 10%. Please, if you buy, sell future options, put straight stocks, you got 3 hours more to go. Rock and roll tango on that Wall Street. Thank you, farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, and millionaires, billionaires, finance, the firefighters, nurses, and truckers, the massage therapy session. I wish I could afford a massage therapy session, but you know what? The farmers, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, they deserve. The farmers, the nurses, they deserve more massage therapy session than me. So my joy is to see, of course, my Joe, my allies and armies pledge your allegiance. Legion's gonna get that honey amber, honey, gonna get that honey amber, bold and rich. Product of Canada, product of Canada, product of Canada, product of Canada. Where there's bees, there's honey. Yours truly to the mountain. I go on this 40-day journey, September 11th today. Scrape some honey, not a lot left, but sometimes we got to utilize with the best of our abilities. And, I got a lot of things to be grateful for. I remember moving here, a few years ago. I was depressed, suicidal, sick, and 7 years ago, still marking today, September, until about September 20th more or less about mid-September 2017, the summer 2017, I crossed Canada coast to coast, and that event in my life made me come out of being depressed and suicidal. I had a little illumination back then, and of course, I'm encouraging, and I've written a document paper, which has fancy titles because Asperger's, being an Aspie, makes me give different, more cosmopolitan, academic, and philosophical titles to my works and intellectual development and whatever conversations we engage in. Sometimes Aspies, we tend to be overly verbose and use too much academic, intellectual, sophisticated language, and that is a fault which of course, we have. So that is sometimes which I gotta be aware of, because again, once again, being an Aspie, having Asperger's is not a mental illness. It is a neurological, mental divergent condition, makes us predisposed to verbosities and overly cosmopolitan, sophisticated academic linguistics, which are not necessary. So I'm gonna send some LOV, some love, because love I got by the trillions, kisses I got by the trillions. I got those trillions of kisses credited from the goddess, forgotten goddess. I don't know her many trillions of billions of names, but it's not all about fighting. It's sometimes you gotta get that LOV. And my anonymous friend, who wasn't my friend because of the money, cause I never had any. If I make a million, gonna give her half, that 50-50. I get the hugs and the kisses for the farmers, for the butchers, for the bakers, for those truckers on the road, construction workers, don't steal toes. Watch it for the cranes. They gotta build some skyscrapers. Yeah, gotta give a shout out to Hydro Quebec. Thanks to the Hydro Quebec workers of the 20th century. Imagine all the labor and work in the 20th century just for us to have electricity. Here, electricity, and of course, it's hydroelectric. It's clean, zero pollution, zero emission, and I believe my DRT theory, the debt fusion theory, will enable us for the North American Collective Complex to build more dams, for us to have furthermore electric hydro dams, hydroelectric power, which does not pollute. And of course, it's clean, zero pollution, zero emission energy, and something to be proud of here as a Quebecer, Canadian, North American. Was many born in the past lives, past incarnations. Just read George Patton's Through a Glass Darkly. Was born in the USA 3 times, once as a woman. And I was born here on the island several times, even before 1492 and between 1534 and 1904 several times. Sometimes a man, sometimes a woman. You get that 50-50 now, get that androgynous rainbow dragon. Philosopher, artist, financially struggling, but always got to be meditating. How about the truckers now, the firefighters? Maybe they're not feeling so, maybe they're a bit moody, angry, and it's important to discuss our feelings and emotions, just matters, but also action. Action is required, so I'm going to take a little bit of that action and drink a little bit of this coffee now. And I'm going to be saying my gratitude for the coffee, and got to be saying grateful, of course, I got a little bit of snack. This was donated, of course, thank you for the food donation. Food security starts with the farmers and the food producers. I got to salute, send some LOV to the truckers, warehouse workers on the docks now, railway, those on the trains now going east, west, north, south, and the truckers on the road, and the firefighters and the butchers and the cooks and those changing some diapers in the daycares. That's also always got to be meditating. And of course, as a philosopher of the North American Collective Civilizational Complex, or aka the North American Civilizational Complex, and gotta say a shout out. I checked, and this is actually, it passed the base before date, but it's just this year. It's April, so it's still good in theory. It could be good up to 6, even 1 year after the best before date. Not the expiry date is not the same, so you got to discern because the expiry date is not the same as the best before date. But of course, this is from Germany, from Germany, from Germany, from Germany. So gotta be saluting, gotta get a little bit of a that salutation. Special 9/11. Gonna start beginning cleaning my room, office, and temple here for the new 40-day journey, which gonna end on October 22nd, and continuing the auction of 93% of everything which have here possess in my possession. And I moved here with nothing. I moved here with nothing really. I had nothing. I don't even remember what I had. I just remember moving here and 7 years ago, cross Canada, coast to coast, and that event in my life made me propel and started working out, training, and exercising, and of course, starting my fitness journey. Lost 93 pounds since then, and of course, ever since then, I've been embarked on the fitness journey and encouraging all to work out, train, exercise. And I've written the document protocol, which of course calls for the mass financing of citizens via public-private partnership, because fundamentally, in essence, everything that I do, of course, is a call for a public and a private partnership, a PPP, based on my initiatives called, of course, the Citizen Integration Theory, the DRT, the Debt Refusion Theory, and the Democratic Fusion Theory, which I'm going to discuss, converse in the coming minutes, hour ahead, and of course, before we switch to that French version will follow a bit later. But now again today, of course, I want to encourage all to work out, train, exercise. I cannot stress enough the importance of regular physical exercise. And of course, I've written some documents, and for many years I've been calling for the mass financing of citizens, fitness and physical activity, to work out, to train, to exercise, do some push-ups, and please, NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA, National Basketball Association, MLB, please give some charity, triple the cheerleader salaries, and finance some women's sports leagues, and mass finance citizens physical activity. Wall Street, finance the farmers, the truckers, the nurses, finance them a good massage therapy session. I'm sure they can use it, coupled with the truckers and the farmers, the public. In the public, of course, it takes that public-private partnership. It's not all about the money. And at this point in time, I wish I could afford a good massage therapy session, because I live a very active lifestyle. Physical activity for me, they does great mental health wonders, and in parallel with gratitude, being grateful adds up to the mental health, because civilization is a privilege. And that is my thesis, that was my thesis as the People's Doctor, which have presented at the beginning of 2023. Civilization, the privilege of civilization. The name of my thesis was, and is, because it's an ongoing discourse and conversation, is the privilege of civilization. Civilization is a privilege. Just take, of course, the electricity which we have. I'm able to do this discourse and commemorate and salute my brothers and sisters in the United States, as of course 9/11 touched all of North America. Canada, of course, the planes were came here to Canada, diverted, because we didn't know what was going on back then. So it's a commemoration together, because we're in this together, North Americans, Quebecers, Canadian North Americans, my Mexican brothers and sisters, including. And North Americans, we gotta get that defense, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. But nonetheless, civilization is a privilege, as we meditate just on the electricity, on all the wires and the concords, and of course all the electric wiring and the poles that transfer the electricity, and of course to have hot water, running water. And myself, as I do those meditation when I go to my second home, Mount Royal at the Belvedere, Conjurenac, of course I always meditate, of course, on those aqueducts which were built underneath from the 20th century, for us, for me, for you, for us together, because it's not just my place, it's of course public. Right now I'm in the private, I share with the public, but nonetheless, to have hot water and electricity, and of course to have the privilege, potable, drinkable water atop the Belvedere on the mountain. That's quite an achievement. And of course, we need to get that North American integrated rebuilding of the infrastructure, because we have, as we have seen last month, that we have here an event, an infrastructure event in Montreal, where we saw a geyser. We saw the aqueduct, of course, burst, and there was a big geyser, of course, with water, and there was a lot of flooding. So we got a lot of work in North America in terms of the infrastructure rebuilding. But I gotta salute those on the public works, of course. I gotta salute and send some LOV, some rock and roll, for those who give and offer us the 3 services in my neighborhood every week, picking up the garbage. The garbage is being collected, so salutations, rock and roll, to those who pick up the garbage, the compost, and of course the recycling. They're also athletes, so I'm calling up call it a heart from this Rainbow Dragon, blah blah blah, from the NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA, National Basketball Association, MLB, those big sports leagues, to please, please, please lower the costs this September, lower the costs of the tickets, so that for public workers such as those who pick up the garbage, the nurses with it, and the doctors, and get a little bit to those farmers as well, and cooks and whatever have you, daycare workers, to get a little bit of those reductions, because affordability is the question now, affordability and housing and social housing. And I'm just saying my gratitude here because, of course, I paid my rent, paid my electricity bill, got food and housing, and this September 11 got a salute, and we got to work together for the coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and get that public-private partnership. Because, of course, at the moment, I only am living in a financial stress, but I'm no longer suicidal, been depressed, suicidal, and 7 years ago, Cross Canada, coast to coast, that event made me come out of being depressed and suicidal because I said so many things to do here in Quebec, Canada, North America, to go coast to coast as I went in 2017, and crossing Canada coast to coast made me have a revelation, and that revelation, which such a passionate intensity, I said, oh, look at this big family, Canadian family here, the True North Strong and Free. Got to add to this True North Strong and Free. We got to add a little bit of loving. North, the True North Strong and Free, but also loving, and got to be secured and insured. And we got to get that admire, admasque, admire, which is the Latin motto. Of course, that's the Latin motto of Canada. And we got to get a more prosperity, and we got to get a little bit more security, and we got to get a little bit more joy, and we got to get a little bit more encouragement to fitness and public hygiene. Super important, public hygiene. Maybe I'm a bit obsessed with microbes and germs and bacteria, but nonetheless, it's something which we got to consider now, of course, as we come out of COVID, and there's different viruses on the horizon, and I'm always watching and being attentive when I go into public. And I could always do better in my underground room, office, and temple, but when I go outside, I got added responsibilities, duties, and obligations in the public, which under the normal circumstances of life here in my underground room, office, and temple, I do not have. But when I go outside, of course, I have different obligations, responsibilities, and duties, which right here in the room, office, and temple, I do not have at the moment, at the present moment. I have less obligations and responsibilities and duties. Well, when I go to my mountain, to my second home, when as an Aspie, we have routines, and my routine is for many, many, many years. I wake up, I do my meditations and sun salutations, and that non-sectarian Thelemite spirituality. It's the spirituality of Thelema, as a universal spiritual teaching student who has a lot of questions, and I am a scholar of the Bible, but so many things I don't know. My spirituality is pretty much rock and roll. The sun, S-U-N, the sun's my Pope, the King, and the moon, the eye of the goddess, blah blah blah. And I do believe in this alternative spirituality, and in spirituality, kind of a, if you want, a non-sectarian Thelema, and of course the law of Thelema. And I get that rock and roll with it, and I have a lot of questions. I don't know it all, but I do know that this Montreal Island, of course, is my home here, and I send good vibes and good wishes and for world peace, and encourage you all to do a little bit of more charity. If you're a millionaire, a billionaire, and you've been blessed by civilization to attain wealth, and of course, civilization and the workers enable lots of that wealth making, to please share it. Don't be so selfish, and I do not fall under any category of pretense, because I have lusts, I have desires for better things in my life, but I'm grateful here. Although I gotta give a salutation for an anonymous friend who gave me a new bed. I got a new bed, new bed, and I got a new table. I gotta do a little bit of scratching for the new table, and on the table, the new table coming in on this September 11, gotta polish it a little bit, maybe put a little bit of red paint. Red, the favorite color of yours truly, Rainbow Dragon, who plays it with that black and white for the farmers, for the truckers on the road, for the railway construction workers on steel toes. Gotta sing some rock and roll for the daycare workers changing diapers. It ain't all about Wall Street. I got the kisses and the hugs, but sometimes everybody gotta eat. Got encouragement to work out. Do me some good pushing. Give me some good push-ups. And you can dance up in the twerk to this. Up in the list. Please, NFL. NHL. NBA. MLB. Sports leagues. Give a little bit of reduction for the public workers, those picking up the garbage. In the truckers, those the athletes got a road. On the road they rock and roll. And they get it on steel toes. Get some brains and some muscle. And nobody rocks on that rose like the Dragan. I freestyle rock and roll as I go, the show. For the 9/11 special. to the brothers and sisters, families, big loving. Nothing but LOV to my brothers and sisters, of course, who survivor of 9/11, you know. Big tragedy, big geopolitical event. It also changed in the 21st century. It changed the whole geopolitics, and, to do a reflection, as I am an independent geopolitical analyst and theorist, and 9/11, of course, September 11th, of course, today, all day commemorating and meditating from a geopolitical perspective, because I am an independent geopolitical analyst and theorist who actually predicted the current international conflagration and the current geopolitical events which are unfolding in a general manner, not in a detailed manner, but in a general manner. I predicted the current international conflagration back in 2019 in October. It's going to be 5 years in October when this new 40-day journey ends, beginning today with cleaning and meditation and stretching and rock and roll and sending some loving and some healing for the youth, for the future. Coast to coast, we're gonna learn to play that defense like that hardball ball. As I love my gridiron, grid football, NFL, CFL. And my Niners lost that day on the NFL, called the blackout ball. But I'm digressing a little bit because I also, parallel to geopolitics, my trinity of obsessions is, because Aspies, people with Asperger's like myself, we got obsessive interests, and pretty much those obsessive interests preoccupy our daily activities 24/7, and we can be pretty intense. When I study and I wake up for many, many years, my routine is waking up, doing my rituals, my meditative rituals, and sun salutations and whatever have you, and then engaging in geopolitical analysis and theorizing and revision of my analysis, and then going back and forth 20th century, 21st century, reanalyzing, reinitializing the events and prognosticating, speculating for possible future events, of which I gotta say that in 2019 I have predicted is gonna be a 5 year commemoration. This about around the 20th of October or so is gonna be 5 years since, of course, I began, and I've, of course, did my geopolitical analysis, and I have predicted an international conflagration, and I got proof of that work, because in parallel to my geopolitical analysis, I have concluded that there's going to be an international conflagration, a parallel, in other words, a possibility of a World War III, and I have created a workout training program system to go hand in hand with such a scenario. And I got proof of work as my workout training program, which I've created in 2019, and of which I've performed myself more than 372 sessions. You can see online and on Facebook hundreds of my workout training program videos, and that I've discussed in parallel with my geopolitical analysis from 2019 in October, which, of course, I had concluded back then that we are on a course towards an international conflagration. And since then, of course, I've been in a kind of World War III mode. But it has to be totally understood that my protocols and initiatives are first and foremost for the defense of the collective North American civilizational complex of what I call the North American collective of North America. So, as an Aspie, somebody who has Asperger's, again, it's not a mental illness. Asperger's is a neurological mental divergent condition which makes Aspies predisposed to obsessive interest, and we are super focused. And my trinity of obsessive interest is geopolitics 24/7, the analysis and theory thereof of geopolitics, sports, fitness, dancing. Dancing is my favorite sport. I can dance for hours. And rock and roll, that's my trinity. And fourth dimension, we can say a little bit of spirituality, and my spirituality is pretty much tied in with my rock and roll. And for the North American, it's pretty much, of course, I am a North American Canadian Quebecer. I can be a world peace advocate, and I am, and calling for a ceasefire, a 7 year coming a septennium, what I call the call today on the September 11th for the septennium for all leaders of the free world. And my Scorpio brother Bill Gates, Scorpio brother Joe Biden, Scorpio brother of Black Rock and Blackstone are two different financial institutions, but another Scorpio is, of course, Larry Fink. It doesn't matter the astrological sign. I'm just making a parallel to the astrology, that, of course, these three or four mentioned individuals are, of course, Scorpios, but it could be Sagittariuses, and Leos and Pisces, and all the astrological signs, the 12, and the sun and the moon dancing in concordium for the nature and civilization's harmony in the future, and to play that defense coast to coast, ocean to ocean, as we are involved, of course, now in geopolitical escalations, and we see rising tensions across the world. And today, marking September 11th, we have to, of course, notice, and I have to take note, and of course, I'm meditating upon this event, that, of course, China and Russia are holding massive naval drills, and Putin has stated that these are the most massive, big, and most important naval operations drills in the past 30 years. So since 1994, if we are to do the mathematics, 2024, or since around 1994, right after the fall of the Soviet Union and before Vladimir Putin took leadership of Russia, of course, on and off since 1999, pretty much as a de facto leader, even he was president and prime minister. I'm not going to go into a divergent analysis of the politics of Russia. And of course, I know it because I study it on the daily and I do revisions on the daily, and geopolitics is my kingdom and my realm and my domain because that is my obsessive interest. But as much as I can pronounce myself and do deep analysis of geopolitical events, I am a North American, I am a Quebecer, I am a Canadian, so I'm going to have some biases and some interests which are for what I call the North American collective, or the collective North American civilizational complex. Myself as a philosopher, centrist, pro labor and love universal revolutionary centrist, because I'm pretty much, my centrism, my revolutionary centrism is tied hand in hand with my holy trinity, the trinity of theories which are fundamentally a public-private partnership, a call for a public-private partnership across what I call the North American civilizational complex, as I believe in creating a common currency across North America, and it can be transatlantic. Of course, I've discussed it in the past. It's called my DRT theory, the DRT debt refusion theory, and I gotta say that through the curse of Asperger's, I've lost a lot of friends in the past 7 years, because that's Asperger's. I have to work on my symptoms, and I'm always constantly aware of my symptoms, and I gotta do a work on my symptoms and be aware of them, that I'm different and I'm neurodivergent, and not to be overly obsessed about geopolitics or divert the conversation towards geopolitics, because if I start in geopolitics it could be 24/7 and I can not, sometimes it's hard to stop, and I can discuss events. And today, of course, is a big event, the geopolitical event of the 21st century, could be stated until now today that it is, of course, 9/11, 9/11, 9/11. Of course, I'm not big on a conspiracy theory. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I, of course, do know and I'm aware as a geopolitical analyst and theorist. Knowing conspiracy theories, of course, is a must in today's world, because a lot of conspiracy theories, a lot of people, a lot of the population of Quebec population, Canadian population, North American population, my brothers and sisters in the USA, there's a big percentage of the population. It can be 5+%, 10%, a quarter percent, more than 1/3% is a lot, but there's a considerable and notable percentage of the population of Quebec, Canada, and the North American collective of North America, of North Americans and beyond, Europeans and the Western world, whatever, how we want to state around the world, that actually believe in many conspiracy theories, and many conspiracy theorists are very popular and they have a following. But I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I believe in my trinity of theories to be implemented, and my dream manifesting as the dancing goddess in the Dragon Kingdom, which is fundamentally a call for a public-private partnership across the collective North American civilizational complex, what I call North America, which includes mass financing citizens to work out, train, and exercise, which has done wonders for me and keeps doing wonders on a daily basis. I cannot stress enough the importance of regular fitness and regular physical exercise. I'm on that repeat on the daily in all my videos. I cannot stress enough. It does great wonders for mental health and wellness and well-being. And of course, I am calling for the initiation of a public-private partnership to finance citizens to travel. 7 years ago, I traveled coast to coast, and that event made me come out of being depressed and suicidal, because I had an illumination, a revelation. I said, so many things to see, to do here across this great true north, strong and free, and we gotta add through strength and freedom. We gotta add prosperity, joy, wellness, and love. We gotta add some of that LOVE. We gotta add some of that loving. True north, strong and free, yes. All for it, Canada, coast to coast. But we gotta add some loving and some prosperity and some loving, some LOV to that strong and free strength, because it's not all about strength, cannot base everything on strength and force and brute force. We got to have a complex, and we got to have a lot of different other values and love and other values parallel to strength, right? Parallel, we got to have interconnected values, and that diversity got to interplay with our characteristics and what I can bring to the table, which first and foremost, kisses by the trillion, some push-ups, some rock and roll, and some fitness and geopolitics, because that's my kingdom, my realm, and I have proof of what I'm saying. I predicted what's happening now back in 2019. I can check on my revision of videos, and I have proof. I predicted the current geopolitical situation back in 2019 in October. In a general manner, I predicted an international conflagration. So today being 9/11, 9/11 was a geopolitical event, the main, most important and extreme, if we will, geopolitical event of the 21st century, of the 21st century, of the 21st century. Now in the 20th century, and of course my geopolitics is specializing in the 20th century and in the 21st, because I do it on the daily. And Asperger's, Aspies, we have a routine. So every day I do geopolitical analysis and theorizing and revision of my geopolitical analysis and theories and geopolitical initiatives and geopolitics 24/7, from the morning, afternoon, and at night, and even in my dreams, and even in the dreams. And parallel to that is a little bit of rock and roll, and sports and fitness, geopolitics, sports and fitness, and rock and roll. That's my holy trinity, and that's pretty much 24/7 with me. And Asperger's, again, it's not a mental illness. It is a neurological divergent mental condition. I have to be attentive not to get too close when I speak to other citizens, in the public. I let people know. A lot of people, some people know what Asperger's is and say, "Oh yeah, it's on the spectrum of autism." I know what it is, and I let them to be aware of my condition, which is neurodivergent, and that if I begin to start to discuss, converse about geopolitics and revise and discuss and interpret geopolitical events, they have to tell me to stop directly, because I can go on and on and on and on, just like with dancing. Dancing, you put music, I dance, 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 and geopolitical, you talk about geopolitics. We can go in the 20th century, we can analyze geopolitical events from the fall of the Soviet Union to the Cold War, to the Cold War events, to of course the Desert Storm war conflagration in the Middle East, and of course the Israel-Palestine, Israel-Arab conflict, and the establishment of the state of Israel. Whatever I say, and as much as I have knowledge of geopolitical events, of course, because today we mark 9/11, a great geopolitical event. I am fundamentally a Quebecer, Canadian, North American. As much as I believe in reincarnations and I've been living past lives, Montreal, metropolis, 2.5 million people on the metropolis, is like a small country, is my home, is my country, is my state. Personally, as much as I am an international, I can try to be as much as I can a world citizen, but pretty much I'm a North American, and I believe in defense, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and my philosophies, a little bit of rock and roll with that. I'm pretty much a Quebecer, Canadian, North America. Personally, I do not consider myself a member of a diaspora, although I am rainbow. I'm part of the LGBTQ community and a fellow Aspie, but I am pretty much a North American. So as much as I can do a deep, in-depth philosophical analysis of other nation states and their positions and their interactions, fundamentally my philosophies and initiatives are for what I call, as a philosopher and geopolitical analyst, the North American civilizational complex, or the complex of North American civilization. The complex of North American civilization, the complex of North American civilization, the North American civilizational complex. Because fundamentally, I am a North American, and I'm a Quebecer Canadian who's not perfect, far from it, who has issues, has vices, and has lusts, and has Asperger's, and has lost a lot of friends, but I'm making new friends now. Friends with benefits only, friends with benefits only, friends with benefits only. And pledge your allegiance, legions. Thou art family, nobody rocks and rolls. Although I got that Aspie, I can play that nasty. For the firefighters, LOV. The butchers and the truckers, let's build some more skyscrapers and defense of the North America. Canadian born in the USA thrice. Once as a woman, twice as a man. Served in the army, in the wars, yes again. For that George Patton, read that poem called Through a Glass Darkly. Read George Patton's. Was a general of the United States, and if you believe in reincarnations, he also believed in reincarnation. George Patton, great general of the Second World War, and he wrote one of my favorite poems called Through a Glass Darkly. But my favorite poet is Aleister Crowley. My favorite poet of all time is Aleister Crowley. My favorite poet of all time is Aleister Crowley. So, my favorite poet is Aleister Crowley. My favorite poet of all time is Aleister Crowley. So, bury me with Papa Crowley. You turtle me up in New Jersey, turtle me up in Mount Royal, turtle me up in the city. Or that pyramids. Got the sun shining, gotta send some loving. Gotta send some love, on this day to survivors of 9/11 in New York. I got freedom tatted there, and Supposedly I got it in New York, but my memory is kind of some blackout like that hardball ball, when they had that 50-50 blackout, and I just remember my memory kind of blurred and I have blackouts. Like I just remember moving, I moved here really with nothing. I was depressed, suicidal. Then 7 years ago, I got the illumination, I got the revelation when I crossed Canada coast to coast, and that event in my life made me come out of being depressed and suicidal because I said to myself, wow, what a country. Canada coast to coast. I crossed the prairies. I went to the Banff when I remember when I reached Banff, I saw the mountains in Alberta. I'm like, wow, 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 wow. Like, wow, wow, wow. And then in Vancouver, taking the SkyTrain and going to Vancouver, seeing the Pacific, dipping toes and going a little bit in the water in the Pacific Ocean. And Vancouver was great. British Columbia was great. And that, then I came back. And then in September, went to Halifax in Nova Scotia. So August 2017, I went in British Columbia, BC, Vancouver. And then in September, I went in Halifax, the Maritimes, which is Nova Scotia, and that event made me come out of being depressed and suicidal. Made me come out of being depressed and suicidal. Made me come out of depression and being suicidal. So I came out of being depressed. I came out. I was like, wow. I had a rebirth, basically a rebirth. So I started my fitness journey after that. I've written on different USB keys. I gotta find them. They're somewhere around here. I'm doing a big cleaning this 40-day coming now, 40-day journey, and I hope I get to find them because I've written tens of thousands of pages and documents about the basically initiatives, citizen public-private partnership-based North American collective initiatives, and one of them calling for the mass financing of citizens' fitness activities via public-private partnership. Let's go, Bill Gates, Microsoft, and Facebook, Google. We can billionaires, millionaires. We can finance wellness. It takes that public and that private, and of course to mass finance citizens for tourism once a year, twice a year. Canada, U.S., Mexico join North American via that Via Rail, CN Rail. We can finance. It's great, does great for mental health, for wellness, and to establish an esprit de corps with my fellow North Americans, because I have an esprit de corps with my fellow North Americans. I have an esprit de corps, with my North Americans. I have an esprit de corps with my North Americans. I have an esprit de corps with my North Americans, and here Quebecers, Canadians, my family, to the got to do a little bit of meditation now to the truckers, to the warehouse workers, those on the docks now, those doing some physical work, mental work, changing diapers. Always got to be immersed, do a little bit of salutation and send them some love. Now truckers from Mexico, Canada, US, and butchers, the firefighters, LOV firefighters, Joe's changing diapers now, and the daycares, the cooks, cooking some hamburgers, cheeseburgers, pizzas, delivering some food. Those cleaning the cities, public workers, got to think about them. The construction workers, those changing the aqueducts now. I'm calling for the North American Great Citizen Integrated Rehabilit- Infrastructure Rehabilitation Act. I believe by the implementation of my DRT, which at this point in time, as much as you will to argue left, right, and center, the DRT theory, my debt refusion theory, my brothers and sisters, is the only solution for where we are now with the public and the private. With the public and the private, in the public and the private, much of the private, not all, because we have those millionaires, billionaires, and please mass finance citizens fitness, mass finance activities. And I gotta salute, because who's gonna build the houses? The construction workers. Monies to buy, sell, to finance. I believe the creation of the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit, stands for UDOT, Universal UDOT Exchange Unit. I believe is the solution now for where we are with the public finances, because today we pay, listen to this, 46.5 billion. 1 billion has 9 zeros. We pay 46.5 billion in interest on the public debt of Canada. In 2020, 2021, it was 20.3 billion. So 20.3 billion, that was 20,000. Now we pay $46,000 in interest on the public debt. And of course, this comes out of the curse of being an Aspie. One of my obsessive interest is geopolitics, and when you study geopolitics, you got to have some wisdom and knowledge and understanding of public finance. And of course, you can check these numbers for yourself. The Bank of Canada, as myself, I'm financially struggling, but my rent's paid for the month of September. I got food. I got a little bit of honey left to scrape for the tea tonight. Put a little bit in the coffee, so I'm grateful. I got food. I got a little bit of this snack. I got some food. I got a fruit. I got them some apples. So I'm grateful. I can still rock and roll, do this work here because I do work independent for many years as a YouTuber. Gotta work with what I got, the smartphone and the laptop. Sometimes give me the tools, I'll do more work. And my DRT is the only solution. I'm gonna quickly discuss about it as I proceed. And I believe this is for North America, the DRT theory for North America. So it's important for me to converse it and discuss it a little bit now. I'm just gonna check a little bit now. So I'm gonna discuss a little bit now the DRT that I'm on it. I'm excited to present it, and we can do a lot of good with the DRT. And I'm actually excited because I've been cursed with Asperger's, but the curse also has presented a blessing, and the blessing is the DRT, the death refusion theory. So what is the DRT, death refusion theory? Stands for D for death, R refusion theory. D for death, R refusion theory. The DRT, Dragan's DRT is the only solution. As much as you will to argue, there's no argument here. The DRT, my brothers and sisters, is the solution, and I believe it's the only solution now, where we are now, September 11, 2024, sending some love to my brothers and sisters, survivor of the 9/11 attacks. The DRT on the table for the North American Civilizational Collective, aka the North American Civilizational Complex. The DRT, debt refusion theory, is the only solution. That is the only solution. There's no other solution now. We pay 46.5 billion in interest. And again, see, the curse of Asperger's. Now I'm learning to manage. In the past 2.5 years, I manage my symptoms because there's no medication for Asperger's. Asperger's is a neurological mental divergent condition, not a mental illness. I'm just predisposed. As all Aspies, we have obsessive interests, we have weird social mannerisms, we are awkwardly in the social settings. We can be awkward and weird and interpret things literally and repeat things. And echolalia is another symptom which can be annoying for a lot of people who don't know what Asperger's is. Echolalia is a symptom of Asperger's. Echolalia is basically repeating the exact same sentence or phrase that another will state, will utter, will say, and then some people might say that we're mocking them or making fun, but it's not that. It's not that. It's just that it's a symptom of Asperger's is echolalia. So that is basically Latin based from the words. Basically, you repeat the echo from echolalia. It's Latin based. So we repeat the phrase or a phrase or a paragraph which somebody will state word for word. Echolalia is basically repeating word for word what we hear. So somebody might say a whole phrase, and I not all the time, but sometimes I will say exactly the same sentence. So that can be an awkward symptom, which I have to be aware, and I have to work on my Asperger's symptoms. So that's about it, rock and roll. But the DRT is the only solution. So the death refusion theory for the creation of the UE, my brothers and sisters, is the only solution. I'm gonna now explain it. The DRT. So again, keep in mind that the motive, the reason why I do state that it is the only solution is because since the fact that we pay 46.5 billion in interest, 46.5 billion, that's 46,000 million. A billion has 9 zeros, not 6. So today, of course, the fact is that due to the COVID programs to safeguard citizens' security, and of course to implement those programs to support financially and economically citizens during the great health crisis known as COVID. And I had COVID back in February 2020, February, March 2020. It was really like death, pestilence, and disease, like death, pestilence, and disease, death. I know that when I say death, I had COVID, and it felt like it was death and pestilence and disease. It was like death, pestilence, and disease. Kind of sounds like a hard rock metal song, and I love my rock and roll, and I sing it 24/7 in parallel with geopolitics. But death, pestilence, and disease. That was us, COVID, up in bees, up in the sting, up in the Scorpio. Gotta get from black and white and rainbow. Nonetheless, I felt like I was dying. In my recent memory, because I got retrograde amnesia, I have blackouts of memory. I remember moving and just starting my fitness journey, crossing Canada, and being hit by COVID and survived COVID, and being reborn now during this COVID, and still haven't had the money to change my name officially, but changing my name, and will to change my name. Adrian H. Dragan, being Adrian Hanna Dragan, yours truly. The DRT, debt refusion theory, is the only solution. We pay 46.5 billion in interest on the public debt. Debt servicing, in other words, just paying the interest, is 46.5 billion. That's 46,000 million. So the DRT, debt refusion theory, is the only solution. There's no other solution but the DRT. I'm going to explain it now. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. My private debt as a citizen is $10,000. So we're gonna take coast to coast. My debt, $10,000. Your debt, our debt, your the debt, our debt, coast to coast. All the public and the private debt. We're gonna add it all together since the United States dollar still is the currency of choice for world trade, international business, global commerce, and of course tourism and import-export. At least those five, but pretty much still is, although there's been a lot of challenges to the United States dollar recently. We're gonna convert all the public and the private debt of Canada into United States dollars. We're gonna add it with the United States dollars, and of course, if they will, but Canada first, then Canada US joint. And of course, keep in mind that my DRT theory, the debt refusion theory, also includes monetary integration theory. What is monetary integration theory? Monetary integration theory is exactly what was done in the European Union. The Europeans got rid of the Deutschmark, the Germans got rid of the Deutschmark, the Italians got rid of the lira, the French got rid of the franc, and they created a common currency known as the euro, and they created the ECB, the European Central Bank, the ECB, the European Central Bank. So they created in Europe a common central bank called the ECB. So my DRT theory stands for debt refusion theory, also includes in it monetary integration theory, which is exactly what was done in the European Union. So that is the inclusive inside that my theory is the monetary integration theory. So my theory also included, but we're gonna do it differently, but in parallel, a little bit the same but differently because we're not in North American Collective for the realities of where we are now in September 11, 2024 with the 46.5 billion in interest which we pay. You can check those numbers, verify these numbers in the Bank of Canada for yourself. Give Mackler a call, Governor of the Bank of Canada, and tell them about the DRT and write emails and Dragan's DRT, Dragan's DRT, Dragan's DRT, and would please and por favor say is the only solution. Is the only solution. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, convert all the public and the private debt of Canada to US dollars, into US dollars, into US dollars, into United States dollar. We're gonna add it with the United States dollars. All that money is gonna be the initial money supply for a new central bank. It could be with Mexico if they will. Although today the new recent geopolitical events, of course, are that there has been some problems in the Senate of Mexico. I'm gonna have to revise and see the information as it comes today, but there has to be seem like there's been some hardcore protest in terms of manifesting against the judicial reforms and proposed judicial reforms by the president of Mexico and the Mexican parliament and the Mexican Senate. The Senate, of course, there seems to be some internal discord, internal domestic pressures and internal domestic turmoil and internal domestic crises in Mexico unfolding as of last night, I believe, and today it's been on the news, so I have to revise my analysis because it's 2:25 p.m. in the afternoon here, local EST time, but nonetheless, I do believe in the North American Collective and my brothers and sisters in Mexico. You know, I believe in the North American Union and the proceeding via public-private partnership and to making great compromises for the collective North American civilizational complex, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. And of course, we're going to see how that unfolds. But Canada first, United States. So we're going to take all the public-private debt. We're going to convert it to US dollar, all the Canadian public-private debt. We're going to add it with the US and Mexico if they will. It could be even transatlantic. NATO member countries, of which there are 32 NATO member countries, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the military defense alliance known as NATO, and of course here in the North American complex we have NORAD. NORAD is basically Canada and US, and I am for including Mexico in NORAD and NATO, Mexico to be included in NORAD and NATO. I am in favor of Mexico joining NORAD, the defense military alliance known as NORAD, and of course in joining NATO because we have of course different geopolitical events which make that we need to unite, of course, with our brothers and sisters in Mexico for part of the North American Collective Civilizational Complex joint interests, because we got the two oceans, the Pacific and the Atlantic, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and we form a North American Collective, and we have even railroads, which of course unite Canada, US, Mexico, Canada, US, Mexico, Canada, US, Mexico is united by a railroad, CN Rail and Via Rail, and not Via Rail, correction, Canadian Pacific and Kansas Pacific, which they joined under one united last year, the biggest merger of a railway company. And of course, it goes all the way to Mexico. So we gotta salute that, and we gotta work together. So the debt refusion theory, take all public and private debt, all that private and public debt, convert it to US dollar, will be the initial money supply for this new central bank. Whatever we call the central bank, the North American Central Bank, whatever we call it, all the money, the debt, private and public, is going to be the initial money supply for this new central bank, which will issue a new currency based on the value of the US dollar called the UE. U dot universal E dot exchange unit. UE, 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 UE. U dot universal E dot exchange unit. The UE. U dot universal E dot exchange unit. The UE. U dot universal E dot exchange unit. The UE. U dot universal E dot exchange unit. The UE. The UE called U dot universal exchange unit, because that's what money is. It's an exchange unit based on the value of the US dollar. We're going to set an interest rate level after that. After implementing the DRT, we're going to set an interest rate level of 10% maximum. It can be 3.33, 7.70, 9.3, 6.1, 4.18, 1.56, whatever the case may be. 6.1, 7.70, 9.3, below 10 by principle. We're going to freeze the prices of bacon, of bread, of butter, of cheese, of essential goods, and other products such as whatever coffee, if we will, coffee in North America. We're going to freeze products cost. We're going to secure food, housing, and transport, and we're going to be able to rebuild the infrastructure of North America with all that money. Mass finance public works, the rebuilding of infrastructure, highways and bridges, and build mass centers across the big cities of the North American complex, North American civilizational collective, in order for citizens to go monitor what's happening on the highways with the truckers, the trucks, the butchers, of everything that's unfolding in the public sphere, where citizens can go and take a look at all the big cities. And that's why it takes a public-private partnership with Facebook, Microsoft, to have telescreens and screens, and of course screens where it can be monitored. The construction works, so that's ongoing. The public works, that's ongoing monitorization of the public sphere for joint citizen integration, for the public security and coast to coast, ocean to ocean, based on my new protocols for called the city CIT, Citizen Integration Theory, which are based, of course, in parallel with the DRT. The debt refusion theory are in parallel with the DRT, is the CIT, the Citizen Integration Theory. The CIT, Citizen Integration Theory, in parallel with the DRT. That's the only solution. We're gonna have to do it. It starts with me on this September 11, commemorating the greatest upheaval and big geopolitical event, catastrophe, terrible, terrorist attack, terrorist attack, terrorist attack, terrorist attack, terrorist attack. The DRT, the debt refusion theory. I gotta celebrate my own rebirth and our defense coast to coast. I have a new table, and I have to polish before I put it. Maybe put some red paint on it, and got a new dresser, got a new bed. So, for dimension, I'm auctioning 93% of everything which I owe here. If I make $1 million, a trillion, a billion, gonna give half 50% to my anonymous friend who I offered willingly loving and power of attorney and XYZ. I am androgynous, pansexual androgynous. I mean, that's my sexuality is a bit weird, and I am part of the LGBTQ community. Play that rainbow 24/7. But if I would marry somebody and I would propose to an anonymous friend, whatever type of the 21st century. Let's get married, North Americans, all of us together. All my allies and armies, pledge your legions. Let's get all married together. 21st century, the new concordium, the new covenant from Mount Royal, for North America, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. All who willingly loving to join us in this a new world order. Where we secure food, secure housing, encourage people to work out, train, exercise, and channel aggression and violence. Dragan Army's motto is, Dragan Army, we channel the aggression with push-ups and hugs. That's one of the mottos of my initiative, which is fundamentally a call for the public-private partnership. When I say support the Dragan Army, it's fundamentally a call for a public-private partnership. Fundamentally, it's a call for a public-private partnership. And channel and sublimate, two key words of my philosophies. Channel and sublimate. Not repress. Repress will make us sick, ill, to repress certain things. And I'm pretty much in my videos, I'm pretty much open about it, and open about my scars, of which I have scars on my face, scars on my body, scars on my, what I call my little androgynous, little tiny dicklet, clit, sometimes grows thanks to goddess, GODDSS, sun shining, rocket, outer space. But gotta use some humor. But I'm pretty much joyous. I'm just financially stressed, and I like to matchmake to see people when I go on my marches. I like to see couples holding hands and hugging. My main message is with consent. Hug like you never hugged before today, September 11. Hug like you never hugged before today. and tomorrow. After not only on September 11, but give yourself a big fifth. What's a quarter of football? 15 minutes. You got four quarters, 15 minutes. That's an hour of football. As much as I love football, hockey, dancing, I can dance for overtime. Overtime, I dance overtime every time. That's for sure. And geopolitics overtime every time. But hug like you never hugged before. Consent, hygiene. That's all that's required. And do some good charity and finance this independent Aspie philosopher, artist, athlete who's financially struggling and came here with nothing really. And I acquired that on my trip 7 years ago when I got out of depression. I got a not a rainbow, but it's a black, white, not white really, but it's black, white, and red and orange tricolor, dragon flag, dragon flag. I'm auctioning for. I got to start at a few billion, the dragon flag, and a few billion for sure, and gonna give half 50% to my anonymous friend, buy a house, pay my debt, and I want to build three buildings, three, the Trinity, forgotten goddess, geodds temple. That's what I will. My will is to build a forgotten goddess temple. And construction workers, I put something on the table, rock and roll, kisses and massages, feet washing for the construction workers, something practical, pleasurable, pleasurable, pleasurable to those who are gonna help yours truly build here in Montreal, North America, forgotten goddess geodds temple. If I will to build something, is the forgotten goddess temple. Forgotten goddess geodds temple. Just I got the ideas for the writings on it and to celebrate the equinox, dream interpretation for the DJ dancing goddess army, celebrate the farming, celebrate nature. In parallel to the forgotten goddess, I want to build my pyramid, new pyramid, 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 new pyramid. Scarlet, red, crimson, scarlet is basically a shade of red, red, crimson, scarlet. House of the Dragon, something red, scarlet, crimson, but not too fancy. Three, 4 rooms, 5 rooms maximum. Sleeping quarters, gymnasium, and somewhere to work out, and bathroom with a bath, circular bath to bathe in, and a kitchen to cook. Not too big, but House of the Dragon, simple, austere, kind of severe, but where I could have people over because here I cannot really entertain. It's too small here, but I'm grateful because I left a really moldy place, a few years ago, and underground it was moldy, and I was sick, suicidal, depressed, and started my fitness journey. Fitness journey ever since begins every day. I always say my fitness journey begins every day, and I came here with nothing really, and I gotta say my gratitude for my anonymous friend who gifted me these nice pants, black pants, and gonna auction them for $1 million. Gonna give half 50% back to my anonymous friend. And this one I bought myself $5, $5, $5. I can't believe it. I got this for $5, and it was like $5 really. I negotiated from like 7 to 5 or 10 to 5. I said five and paid like $5 for it. So I'm auctioning this for $1 million. Also give half because I wore it for the past 3.5 years, and I get a little bit of dragon sweat on it, so it got some value added, value added, value added. Yours truly, it's not all about the money. Sometimes it takes that loving, and it's not all about fighting. Sometimes it takes that loving, and the DRT is the only solution. I'm gonna discuss it again. If I go to that French, a little bit of spitting in the French, and again, my brothers and sisters in the USA, special 9/11 edition. I gotta send some loving to my brothers and sisters, some big hugs. And I was born in the USA 3 times, once as a woman, twice as a man, post between 1776 and 1984. I served in 2 different wars. I was born in different different eras of the United States, post 1776, once as a woman, twice as a man, and served in the 2 different wars, served in the US Army in 2 different parallel, pretty much 156 years apart in different wars. And here I am today for the defense of the North American philosopher artist, and we're gonna have to play that defense, defense, defense. My initiatives are most and foremost for defense of what I call North American civilizational complex, and I got my initiatives and protocols. One of them called the North American Hawk Defense Initiative, Hawk, HAWK, that my totem bird, and we got hawks here on the mountain, HAWK, 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 hawk. Hawk like a hawk, get that rainbow, get that black and that white, and the sun shining and rising, gonna see up in the skies. Gotta send some loving, it ain't all about fighting. Butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, hey, somebody changing those diapers. In the daycare workers, gotta get me chopped some onions. Somebody cooking that bacon. Gotta get those farmers, butchers, warehouse workers, and truckers. They gotta serve me some bucks. It ain't all about those millionaire athletes, those public workers picking up the garbage. They go and get that smelly days, those be athletes. I rock and roll. Rock and roll is really one of my obsessive interests as well as passion. holy aspie trinities of Rainbow Dragon is geopolitics and sports, fitness. Dancing is my favorite sport, and rock and roll. And the DRT again. Before I gotta say it again. The DRT, debt refusion theory. I'm gonna discuss this. So the DRT is the only solution. Debt refusion theory, my brothers and sisters. There's no other solution but the debt refusion theory. The DRT stands for D for debt, R refusion, and T for theory. The debt refusion theory is the only solution. You can argue all the way you want, left, right, and center, but the D for debt, R refusion, for T for theory. The debt refusion theory is the only solution. Now where we are in this 21st century with 46.5 billion in interest, which we pay 46.5 billion in interest, we pay 46.5 billion in interest. That's the amount of interest which we pay today, September 11th, 46,000 million. 46,000 million. That's how much interest on the debt we pay. There's no other solution but the DRT. You can argue all you want, but the DRT, debt refusion theory, now for 2024, for 2025 coming, there's no other solution. That's why it has to be implemented. And again, this comes out of me, my curse of Asperger's, which has these blessings. My obsessive interest is geopolitics. So, having studied geopolitics in the past years, I've also written the DRT, especially during COVID, as I foresaw, and I concluded this last September when the new budget was put on the table, and the news came that we're gonna pay 46.5 billion in interest in October last year, September, October, November, November 22nd last year. To be specific, November 27th, November 22nd, November 22nd last year was discussed in the news, and that's how much interest we pay, 46.5 billion in this year. So the DRT is the only solution. We're gonna have to take, and we will take all the debt, coast to coast. The individual citizens, my individual debt as an individual citizen is about $10,000 in debt to the RBC, Royal Bank of Canada. So we're gonna take all the debt, my debt, your debt, our debt, all the public private debt. We're gonna convert all the public Canadian dollars, Canadian public private debt. It's gonna be in Canadian dollars. We're gonna convert it to US dollars because the United States dollar still is today, September 11, 2024, the main currency for international business, for international trade, world commerce, international business, tourism, and import export, and other things. But those six predominantly, those five or six affairs of the world. So that's what money is, to buy, sell. The United States dollar still is the number one currency in the world for tourism and business, and what I said before. So we're gonna convert all the public private debt of Canada into US dollar. We're gonna add it with the United States dollars, Mexico if they will, and of course the islands, Haiti, Dominican Republic, and the islands, Jamaica, they're part of North America. Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti, if they will. Yes, be Canada first, United States, Canada first, North America, expand it to North American countries, and the islands are part of North America, but fundamentally, primarily, Canada. And my brothers and sisters, the king is absent. He has to have royal assent, but the king is absent, my brothers and sisters, for the past years. Since COVID has been me, you, and us here, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and in the past 7 years, when I crossed Canada coast to coast, and the DRT has to be implemented coast to coast. Debt refusion theory, take all public and private debt. All that money is going to be converted to US dollars, going to be the initial money supply for a new central bank, which we're going to create in North America, parallel to what the European community did with the creation of the European Central Bank and the creation of the euro, a new currency. We're going to create the UE, but all the money, all the public private debt will be the initial money supply for this new central bank. We're going to create the UE, U dot universal E dot exchange unit, U dot universal E dot exchange unit, the universal exchange unit, U dot universal exchange unit. All that money converted is going to be the initial money supply, the universal exchange unit. All the money, and that's what money is, it's an exchange unit. So with all that money, we're going to be able to do a lot of good. Rebuild the infrastructure of North America, mass finance fitness for the citizens, wellness programs, and encourage them and finance them with UEs, maybe to do my workout, complete my workout within the rules and get 50 UEs, whatever have you. Finance the rebuilding of the infrastructure, which we greatly need because we see a lot of problems arising in the infrastructure and the highways and the aqueducts, and we're going to be needing to replace a lot of aqueducts for us to have replacement of the water to be able to drink clean and portable water. So that's a lot of work which we're going to be needing to be doing. The replacement, of course, and more bridges, and for defense, coast to coast, the Dragan army, and for the environment, the Dancing Goddess Army, and mass finance citizens tourism to cross travel inter North American cross travel for wellness. That was one of my documents which I've written in the past. I started writing it exactly a few weeks after I came out from my depression, after I crossed Canada in August and September. Basically, summer 2017 was a turning point in my life, and that got me out of being depressed and suicidal and starting on my fitness journey. Lost about 93 pounds ever since, about 93 or so pounds in pounds, not kilos, but pounds. 93 pounds or so, between 80 and 93 pounds. Estimated minimum 80 pounds, maximum 93 pounds, 93.44 maybe maximum. So got a minimum and a maximum there, but I lost a lot of weight, so I came out of depression, and I wrote an article, a document, basically like an essay form, has a fancy title, something like the initiative for the finance the initiative for the mass financing of North American citizens tourism via public-private partnership for wellness and general well-being. So my documents usually have general fancy titles. Perhaps it's a fault of Asperger's, and that is utilizing too much cosmopolitan academic language. But in other words, to simply be put, my document related the need for a public-private partnership to mass finance citizens to travel across North America, for them to, of course, fight depression, and to establish an esprit de corps with North America, to establish an esprit de corps with fellow North Americans, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. So my DRT is going to be able to initiate and do that at the Debt Refusion Tree for the creation of the UE. The UE, that's why I'm calling on my brother Scorpio Bill Gates, and brother Scorpio Joe Biden, brother Scorpio Larry Fink, and Sagittarius, and Taurus, and Pisces, and all the astrological signs, whether you believe in that or not, left or right or center. The DRT, my Dragon's Debt Refusion Theory, is the only solution now. There's no other solution. You can argue all you want, left, right, and center. There's no other solution but the DRT, Dragon's DRT, as we stand here on this September 11, 2024. The sun shining, and rock and roll for the butchers, the truckers, LOV, the truckers, LOV, the firefighters. Love the nurses, love the doctors, those doing some food, manual labor, intellectual labor, the teachers teaching a little bit of math to the adolescents and the youth, and the daycares changing some diapers, and those in the physical education now doing a little bit of sweating and a little bit of running, and in the high schools, and the teachers and the nurses, and all those workers who made less than 44,718, including myself. I had a lot of employments during COVID, which I really liked and really enjoyed and really loved. But the problematics with Asperger's is that there's a lot of misunderstandings concerning my condition, which is a neurological mental divergent condition known as Asperger's, being an Aspie, that you know that I've encountered. And you know sometimes with Aspies is needed to be more direct, and we have symptoms which we got to work on, but nonetheless there's a lot of misunderstandings, and we are socially awkward and weird, but we have our strengths, and to the point that we have obsessive interests. So Aspies like myself, we have obsessive interests where we are so obsessed about those interests, and myself for more than 7 years now. Geopolitics, fitness and sports, and dancing, and rock and roll has preoccupied my daily activities 24/7. It's rock and roll 24/7, is geopolitics 24/7, is working out, training, and exercising, and sports and fitness and dancing. So that's my holy trinity of obsessive interest. But I am an independent geopolitical analyst and theorist who has predicted in a general manner the international conflagration which is unfolding at the moment. I have proof. In 2019, I've did, of course, an in-depth analysis of geopolitics, geopolitical analysis, an in-depth analysis of geopolitics, an in-depth analysis of geopolitics, an in-depth analysis of geopolitics, and I've concluded, of course, that humanity is set on a course towards an international conflagration. And of course, I've concluded back in 2019 in October what, of course, has unfolded now in a general overall manner, which has unfolded not exactly, not detail by detail, but in a general manner, which of course I have foreseen back in 2019 in October. And of course I've created a workout training program system to go hand in hand with such an event, as of course I have predicted it back in 2019. In a general manner, I predicted a World War III, an international conflagration, and I have proof because I created a workout training program system which is simple, effective, and efficient, and which requires no equipment. My workout, which I've created in parallel, to see the parallel of my obsessive interest, fitness and sports, and geopolitics. And of course, the third one is rock and roll. And I have, of course, created that workout training program back in 2019. The rules are simple, and you can engage and try to do it, and you can see hundreds of my workout videos. I'm going to discuss it now. The official title of my workout is a long one, and it's called the General War Integrated Total Body Training System. The General War Integrated Total Body Training System, 7 words. The General War Integrated Total Body Training System, because it was created for a potential emergency situation, for a potential World War III, or aka an international conflagration, which we have been witnessing and seeing in the past 5 years, or so, with the U.S.-China trade war, with the recent drills. It's possible that as I'm speaking today, September 11, that China, known as the People's Republic of China, also known as mainland China, it's possible that they're going to invade Taiwan, known as the Republic of China. And of course, my conclusion back in 2019 in October was based on exactly the fact that many nation states and regions and civilizations were not able to reconcile, to achieve and attain reconciliation of 20th century conflicts, and there's going to be a spillover. So that is exactly in many ways what's unfolding now in the 21st century. So that was a general overall analysis and conclusion that due to that fact, there's going to be a spillover of unresolved conflicts of the 20th century, which are going to spill over in the 21st century. So that was my conclusion, that was my analysis. So if I can give a brief general resume, if I can resume it and analyze in a succinct manner, that was my conclusion, that due to the fact that many unresolved conflicts and regions conflicts and regional conflicts and civilizational conflicts and nation states inner dimensions are not resolved, that is going to be a spillover in the 21st century. So that is in many parallel what we're seeing, witnessing now. But like here in North America, and we got a lot of work to do, reconciliation, send some love. I got to send some love to my fellow brothers and sisters for natives. And I remember a great event like about right before, kind of like June, right before I went on that trip. I was still depressed, suicidal. I went to the mountain where I go and I have my flashes on the mountain of past lives incarnations, and I met my brothers and sisters who are natives, and they were Mohawk, and they invited me over to have a little bit of drink and a little bit of food, and they were spent some hours with them. And I remember we were discussing past lives and incarnations, and they were very welcoming, and they kind of said, you're part of our family now, and we hugged and said love you guys, and said love you guys, and we sang some rock and roll, and they kind of laughed, and we had some good fun. So I haven't seen them afterwards, but hope they're well, and we need to reconcile, and reconciliation with my black brothers and sisters. 13.3, 13.4% of the North American population are blacks, and our black brothers and sisters, my neighbors included, and we need to reconcile. We are North Americans, and USA, Canada joined Mexico as well. And in my Dragon's lair here on the ground has been the past more than 7 years has been the trilingualism and French, English, Spanish, English, French, Spanish, English, Spanish, French, and I manage a little bit of Spanish I learned in the past years, and I love Spanish and can manage and read Spanish and French because I'm a Quebecer Canadian here, and we made the great what I call as a philosopher the great linguistic compromise. 10 million Quebecers here in la belle province. You know, we made what I call the great linguistic compromise to continue to have peace and harmony in North America. It has been a hard road, and sometimes we give, we put on the table, we give, we take, we give, we take, but overall, generally, we've been able to make it, and we resolve our differences with sometimes with sportsmanship and a little bit of sweating and rock and roll, a little bit of those go Habs go, go Habs go, go Habs go, whatever the case may be. Now we got the victory now, the women's hockey league, which rocks and rolls. I wish I could give them a million, but I'm financially struggling. But women's sports leagues is definitely women's sports is definitely sometimes that something that as a millionaire being I would definitely support and finance, and I will definitely support and finance food security, which starts with the farmers, but nonetheless also reconciliation, and there's tensions, but we made it so far, what I call the great linguistic compromise, and just make an effort with that French, make an effort with that Spanish, and vice versa, make an effort with the English. You know, in the European Union, they were able to have concordium and create the euro, and there they have German, they have French, they have Italian, they have Polish, they have Bulgarian, they have Romanian, they have English, of course, and they have Spanish and Catalan, and they have, of course, Flamand, and they have different languages, you know. So they were able to make it Concordium. We're going to be able to make it and continue for North Americans Unite is the rock and roll call. 24/7 North Americans Unite. I'm gonna get to switch into that French now because liable prevents. Again, I encourage you all to work out, train, exercise, and support the DRT. My brothers and sisters, there's no other way but the DRT. I gotta say, the DRT is the only and one and only solution to where we are now with the public finances. The public finances, it's a crisis mode. We pay 46.5 billion. A billion has 9 zeros. My DRT, the debt refusion theory. I'm proud to say, although comes out of the curse of Asperger's, having lost a lot of friends and financial stress and having been employed and then unemployed and only a few weeks, only a few months and not working out. But recently, I accepted because many people have told me, and I'm still waiting to dialogue with fellow from different centers of Asperger's. And Asperger's is not a mental illness. It's a neurological mental divergent condition. And we have our strengths. We have our knowledge, our wisdom, our understandings, which are revolving and usually involve our obsessive interest. Some might be computers. Some Aspies are geniuses at computers because they're obsessed about computers and science. Me, it's geopolitics. Geopolitics 24/7, the analysis, the study, the revision of geopolitical events. Geopolitics 24/7, with us fitness and sports 24/7, and rock and roll. That's my trinity of obsessive interests. And I am a universal spiritual teaching student, also part of the LGBTQ community, making friends with benefits only from now on. Pledge your allegiance, legion, support the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, which is fundamentally my call for a public-private partnership across the collective North American civilizational complex. And I got some cleaning to do today in the coming 40 days, new 40-day right here. We're going to switch to that French because we're in la belle province, and we're going to go a little bit of that French. And before I do, of course, I want to discuss the DRT again, and I'm gonna have to be excused because I'm gonna go a little bit of the washrooms and then come back for that French. But once again, the DRT I put on the table with trillions of kisses, sending some love. 9/11 again was a big, 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 the most important geopolitical event of the 21st century. I am willing to say, to state, or one of the most important in terms of tragedy, geopolitical tragedies, the 9/11 attacks. And again, I don't indulge in conspiracy theories, but as we know, there are some pages that have been 44 or something like that. Pages that have been still to be declassified in the coming 5 years or so. 2028, 2028, 2029, 2029, 2029. God, correct me if I'm wrong. 2029, 2030, maybe 2033, something like that. I'm not sure exactly the years, but more than 5 years from now, suppose will be declassified more pages. But I will to know more about the event around the Pentagon. And of course, there's some more esoteric matters which involve the numerology of the planes. And because I've studied geopolitics, in the past 70 plus years, although I have a blackouts of my memory, a youth and adolescence, and I remember mostly the past years, and it's called raw retrograde amnesia. It's a condition, and maybe the mold or the sickness or some trauma, which kind of have me to have those blackouts of memories, and I have a lot of scars on my body. So, whatever the case may be, and I played that defense, only played that defense, and I remember reading in the past years because every year there's 9/11 is in the news, and I read about it. And I know the plane numbers. They're plane number 11, plane number 93, plane number 77, and plane number 175. So supposedly there's some numerology, something more occult in the occult esoteric manner, which supposedly there's a direct link with the numerology of the planes, which there were four planes, 11, plane number 11, AA number 11, number 93, 77, 93 crashed in Pennsylvania, 11 and 175 hit the towers, and 77 hit the Pentagon, right? The Pentagon. So supposedly there's some numerology involved with the numbers of the planes: 11, 77, 175, and 93. Whatever the case may be, I do not believe in conspiracy theories. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I do have some questions, and the how, the who, the 19 hijackers, and the XYZ, and the Pentagon, the plane that crashed into the Pentagon, and all that. But I do not support conspiracy theories. I'm not a conspiracy theorist myself. I do know about them and have learned some of them because when you study geopolitics, which I am an independent geopolitical analyst and theorist, and I have to know a little bit of, because it interplays how people might vote, how people have a worldview, and it can play geopolitically because you can have conflicts due to conspiracy theories and riots and inner turmoil and unrest, geopolitical unrest due to conspiracy theories and what have you. But nonetheless, I do not believe in the general conspiracy theories. I believe in my trinity of theories: the DRT, debt refusion theory; the CIT, citizen integration theory; and the democratic fusion theory. That trinity of theories to be implemented via love. Love is also action. So the DRT, we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, and we're gonna do the refusion. So all the public private debt will be the initial money supply for a new central bank. We're gonna create what I call the UE, based on the dollar value of the dollar of the United States dollar, based on the U is going to be the value of the US dollar at that point in time. How it starts with me today, September 11th. So all the public and the private debt would be the initial money supply for this new central bank, and we're going to create the UE, U dot universal E dot exchange unit. The U dot universal E dot exchange unit. That's what I'm calling my astrological brother Bill Gates and Larry Fink and others. Doesn't matter the astrological signs, but they're all. Bill Gates is a Scorpio. Larry Fink of Black Rock and Black Rock, not to be confused with Blackstone, because Black Rock and Blackstone are two different financial institutions. It's Larry Fink. It's a private, but it takes the private and the public to support and to implement my theory. The DRT takes both the public and the private financial institutions. So we're gonna have to get the public-private partnership as the DRT. We're gonna start to implement it. It starts with me today, September 11th, and my astrological brother also, Joe Biden, the president of the United States, is also a Scorpio. It doesn't matter. Sagittariuses, Lions, Leos and Lions, but it doesn't matter. The matter is that is the only solution. The DRT, we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. All that money is gonna create a new central bank, which we're gonna call the North American Central Bank, and we're gonna create the UE, U dot Universal E dot Exchange Unit. The Universal Exchange Unit is gonna be based on the value of the US dollar, and that we're gonna create. And with that money, all that money is gonna be the initial money supply. We're gonna set an interest rate level of 10% maximum, 10% maximum, 10% maximum thereafter. It's gonna be no more than 10%. It can be 3.33, 1.56, whatever the case. And with that money, we're going to do so much good. We're going to be able to mass finance the rebuilding of infrastructure, mass finance citizens to work out, train, exercise, mass finance citizens' physical activity. To the DRT, to my brothers and sisters, survivor of 9/11, I send some hugs and love, LOV, and rock and roll. And, you know, for my brothers in North America and unite my brothers in the USA and Canadian Quebec are here sending some love and salutation and love and big hugs and I love you, love you, love you, love you, the youth. And gonna go a little bit, need to go to the washroom, and then I'm gonna come back, switch to that French. Cause we in La Belle Province. Alright! Et on est prêt pour le français. Je vais juste mettre un peu de café additionnel là. Et on y va. On va faire ensemble de la danse. On va pas danser, on célèbre aujourd'hui malheureusement un événement quand même difficile dans l'histoire. Je vais dire dans l'histoire du collectif nord-américain, car, bien sûr, vous savez que je suis un philosophe qui a l'Asperger's. Et l'Asperger's, encore une fois, ce n'est pas une condition de maladie mentale. L'Asperger's, c'est une condition de neurodivergence. Donc, je suis neurodivergent. Je n'ai pas de maladie mentale, j'ai juste un stress financier en ce moment. Je vis un stress financier, je dois l'avouer, mais je dois dire ma gratitude, puis je dois commencer avec la gratitude. Mon loyer est payé pour le mois de septembre, j'ai du café, j'ai du thé, puis je dois saluer, puis envoyer de l'amour. Travail public, les fermiers, puis jusque dans les champs de patates, jusqu'en haut des gratte-ciels sur les grues. Les travailleurs en construction qui construisent le bâtisse vont construire. Bien sûr, le travail des travailleurs publics qui changent les actes. L'Hydro-Québec. Merci les travailleurs du 20e siècle, c'est grâce à vous que j'ai de l'électricité, pas juste moi-même, mais tous les autres citoyens, puis même dans les 5 ou 6 États des États-Unis, ça va jusqu'à Manhattan, dans l'île à New York. L'électricité qui ne pollue pas, ça doit dire, c'est des centrales hydroélectriques qui utilisent l'eau pour qu'on ait de l'électricité. Donc, c'est quelque chose que je dis toujours aux touristes, si vous voyez dans mes vidéos, bien sûr, que sur YouTube, je rencontre des fois, je filme avec mon ordinateur portable parce que c'est mon outil de travail, mais je suis en stress financier, je dois travailler avec les outils que j'ai, puis je suis un artiste, philosophe, athlète, puis analyste et théoricien géopolitique qui a l'Asperger's et qui est arc-en-ciel, le dragon, puis à la Trinité, à la Sainte Trinité des intérêts obsessifs, parce que nous autres, les aspies, on a des intérêts obsessifs, puis ces intérêts sont tellement intenses quand on travaille là-dedans, quand on fait des études là-dedans, quand on s'engage dans ces intérêts, puis moi-même, c'est la géopolitique 24 sur 24, c'est l'entraînement physique, la danse, je peux danser pendant des heures, puis l'entraînement physique, puis le rock'n'roll, puis je fais du rock'n'roll. En tant qu'Aspie, en arc-en-ciel, le dragon, la belle province, les centrales Hydro-Québec, ça monte ses grues. Ma tante Ginette, ça bouge des fesses, aux îles la Madeleine, j'aime ça le matchmaking, l'office m'appelle, hey! Et la traduction, pas de traduction, l'amour, go Habs go, ça chante, ça danse, comme Céline bilingue, mon oncle le go, je l'appelle puis il me répond pas. Il dit j'ai pas d'argent, j'ai pas d'argent, j'ai pas d'argent, mais ouais, mais sont en grève. Les travailleurs de la belle province, puis l'artiste qui danse, des bisous, le bleu ciel. J'adore le rock and roll, puis je compose des chansons rock and roll, comme vous venez de le constater, en mode libre, puis c'est un de mes intérêts obsessifs. J'ai l'Asperger's, mais quand je fais du rock and roll, je suis vraiment dedans, puis j'adore faire le rock and roll, puis de la géopolitique. Puis aujourd'hui, ben, c'est un événement quand même difficile pour notre histoire. Je dis notre histoire parce qu'en tant que Québécois canadiens, ben, nos voisins aux États-Unis, ben, on a été affectés, puis pas juste nous autres, les Nord-Américains, parce que je dis souvent, mais on est des Nord-Américains de l'Amérique du Nord, on constitue ce que j'appelle un collectif de civilisation, soit un complexe de civilisation, un collectif de civilisation, un complexe de civilisation en Amérique du Nord, émergent, qui n'est pas tout à fait divorcé, mais on a des distinctions avec l'Occident. On forme, on constitue, on est émergent, ça veut dire qu'on émerge un collectif, un complexe de civilisation de l'Amérique du Nord, les Nord-Américains, on est émergent. Puis ici au Québec, on a fait ce que j'appelle le grand compromis linguistique. Du français, des fois on donne sur la table, on remet en question, on se donne, on négocie, mais d'une façon générale, on a fait ce grand compromis linguistique, ce grand compromis du français. Donc moi-même, en composant des poèmes, des idées de cinéma, puis ben du rock'n'roll, 24 sur 24, parallèlement avec l'analyse puis la théorie en géopolitique, votre dragon arc-en-ciel. Encore une fois, je dois commencer puis dire la gratitude, c'est tellement important pour la santé mentale. Puis Bien sûr, je célèbre encore une fois aujourd'hui, jusqu'à peu près au 17 septembre, je célèbre 7 ans. 7 ans, en 2017, j'ai traversé le Canada. Je suis allé à Vancouver, en Colombie-Britannique. En 2017, j'ai pris l'autobus 3 jours et demi et je suis allé en Colombie-Britannique à Vancouver. Et cet événement dans ma vie, ça m'a fait que j'ai eu une illumination parce que j'étais en dépression. J'étais suicidaire, dépressif, puis un réveil. J'ai dit tellement de choses à faire, à voir au Canada, un gros pays, puis j'ai commencé à avoir un gros esprit de corps avec le Québec, avec le Canada, puis je vous considère ma famille, tu sais, Québécois, puis Québécoises, puis Canadiens, puis les Nord-Américains, puis tous ceux qui viennent nous rejoindre. Tu sais, comme une grosse famille, des fois on est dysfonctionnel, puis on a des difficultés maintenant, c'est des temps difficiles moi-même, un stress financier, puis mon chemin pour l'acceptation de mon Asperger, je suis Aspies, je suis neurodivergent, j'ai cette condition de neurodivergence, mais j'ai mes forces, puis j'ai perdu beaucoup d'emplois, des opportunités de travail, mais à cause de l'Asperger en étant Aspies, mais j'ai des forces en géopolitique, c'est mon royaume et mon domaine, puis j'ai la preuve de ce que je vais vous dire, que j'ai prévu la situation qui se déroule en ce moment. En 2019, en octobre, j'ai prévu une conflagration internationale d'une manière générale, puis c'est pour ça que j'ai la preuve. En octobre 2019, j'ai fait une analyse profonde des événements géopolitiques, puis ma conclusion, basée sur un point très principal, c'est que j'ai prévu qu'à cause est due au fait qu'il y a des conflits non réglés qui n'ont pas été résolus du 20e siècle. Ça va être d'importance majeure, ces conflits qui datent du 20e siècle. Il y aura une continuité dans le 21e siècle. Puis d'une manière générale, généralement parlant, c'est ce qui arrive en ce moment dans la géopolitique, dans ces conflits de manière. On est proche d'une troisième guerre mondiale, un conflit en géopolitique, puis des conflits internationaux, c'est des conflits régionaux, des régions, puis le conflit de l'Ukraine en Europe, la Russie qui a envahi l'Ukraine, c'est des conflits qui datent des intérêts du 20e siècle, puis ils n'ont pas été capables de résoudre d'une façon complémentaire, de faire des compromis puis avoir des résolutions pacifiques. Ces conflits qui datent non résolus du 20e siècle, j'ai prévu qu'il y aura qui, ont, qui vont continuer dans le 21e siècle. Ici, les Nord-Américains, on a fait des grands compromis avec nos frères et sœurs qui sont indigènes, les indigènes, les Premières Nations qu'on appelle les Premières Nations, mes frères et sœurs, mais je leur vois d'amour, amour aux Premières Nations, puis tous ceux qui sont en Amérique du Nord pour la continuité, bien sûr, puis on a fait le grand compromis linguistique du français. C'est quelque chose, bien sûr, qu'on y travaille constamment, on y travaille. On donne, on reçoit, on donne. Des fois, on fait des compromis, on fait du financement. Pour le français au Québec, on a quand même des tensions et tout ça, mais quand même, on a été capable de résoudre d'une manière pacifique pour avoir l'harmonie. Faites comme je dis toujours, si vous êtes Québécois qui ne parle pas beaucoup d'anglais, je dis toujours, faites un effort, puis qu'on fasse la troisième version du film Bon Cop, Bad Cop. Bon Cop, Bad Cop, la troisième version du film Bon Cop, Bad Cop. J'ai des idées, puis le dialogue, puis j'aimerais jouer un petit 5 minutes dans ce film en faisant de la danse, puis du rock and roll, puis que ça fasse rire Colin Farrell puis Patrick Huard qui jouent le rôle de David Bouchard et bien sûr de Mike Ward respectivement. C'est un de mes films préférés, puis ça joue sur les stéréotypes bien sûr des Anglais puis des Québécois comme moi-même, Québécois, Canadiens, Nord-Américains, parce que bien sûr moi-même j'y crois dans la réincarnation, puis comme je dis aujourd'hui à mes frères et sœurs des États-Unis que j'étais né aux États-Unis 3 fois entre 1776 et 1984, 2 fois homme, 1 fois femme. Maintenant, aujourd'hui, le 11 septembre 2024, mais vous avez moitié-moitié votre dragon arc-en-ciel qui vous chante du rock'n'roll avec le noir et blanc et arc-en-ciel. Là. Envoyez de l'amour à nos fermiers, tous ceux qui sont les camionneurs, les travailleurs publics qui changent des aqueducs, ceux qui sont en train de changer des couches dans les garderies, imaginez-vous, mais ça fait du travail maintenant. Il faut toujours, en tant que philosophe, de faire que je fasse une méditation à tout ce qui se passe. Mais bien sûr, j'ai pas tout le savoir, mais d'une manière, une façon méditative, puis l'imagination, je dois dire toujours que je médite, puis les activités qui se passent au quotidien, du point de vue en tant que être moi-même philosophe et analyste et théoricien en géopolitique des événements qui se passent au quotidien dans qu'est-ce que j'appelle le collectif de civilisation de l'Amérique du Nord ou le grand complexe de civilisation de l'Amérique du Nord. Donc les Québécois et le Québec, on fait partie avec le Canada, puis bien sûr, moi-même, je continue aujourd'hui, cette semaine jusqu'à la semaine prochaine, de célébrer les 7 ans, parce qu'en 2017, l'événement qui a changé ma vie, ça a été de traverser puis faire le voyage à travers le Canada de côte à côte. Puis après ça, j'ai commencé à écrire des documents. Puis bien sûr, c'est des clés USB. J'ai des documents que je discute d'une manière de communication. J'ai écrit un document relatif. Ça a comme un titre quand même là et complexe. Un titre d'une manière que ça dit l'initiative pour le financement par un partenariat public-privé des citoyens de l'Amérique du Nord pour le tourisme vis-à-vis pour financer les citoyens de l'Amérique du Nord, un partenaire, l'initiative pour le financement des citoyens de l'Amérique du Nord pour le tourisme via un partenariat public-privé, un titre long et complexe un peu, mais bien sûr, qu'est-ce que mon document faisait appel, c'est un partenaire pour un partenariat public-privé pour financer les gens à voyager à travers le Québec, voyager à travers le Canada, à travers l'Amérique du Nord, pour établir un esprit de corps avec tout ce qu'on a au Québec, des champs, des fermes, de la laitue romaine, ou patates, ou navets, ou cerises, ou production laitière, ou production de fromage, des fermes au gratte-ciel, puis la production de satellites, d'en haut en bas, puis de la gauche à la droite, puis de l'est à l'ouest, en nord au sud, en faisant de côte à côte, d'océan en océan, du Pacifique à l'Atlantique. Mais je crois vraiment aujourd'hui, qu'on est le 20 septembre, en faisant aussi commémoration puis méditation sur cet événement majeur en géopolitique, une tragédie en géopolitique, mais ça a changé le monde, ça nous a affecté bien sûr au Québec, puis en tant que d'une manière de sécurité, on doit travailler sur l'Amérique du Nord de côte à côte, puis moi je suis pour l'intégration de l'Amérique du Nord dans un partenariat public-privé, puis pour la création d'une monnaie d'échange commune parallèlement ou équivalent vis-à-vis bien sûr ou comme qui ont fait les Européens avec la création de la Banque centrale de l'Europe puis la création de la nouvelle monnaie qui s'appelle l'euro. Ils ont été capables de le faire des années 90, je dis qu'on doit le faire maintenant, au moins le Canada et les États-Unis, puis bien sûr le Mexique. Le Mexique, ça fait partie de l'Amérique du Nord, les îles aussi, la Jamaïque, l'Haïti, le Cuba, mais bien sûr, ma théorie que je mets sur la table, la théorie de la refusion de la dette, puis j'y crois vraiment que c'est la seule et unique solution. Je vais devoir la discuter parce que je la discute depuis des mois, puis bien sûr, j'y crois vraiment dans cette théorie que faire l'implémentation de ma théorie, c'est la seule et unique solution du point de vue où on est rendu, du point de vue des finances publiques, car est dû au fait qu'aujourd'hui, le 11 septembre 2024, on paye 46,5 milliards de dollars sur l'intérêt de la dette publique. Mais cher de la gauche, de la droite au centre, ben, vous pouvez vous ostiner pendant 5 ans, 6 ans, 7 ans de temps, mais aujourd'hui, c'est la seule solution pour résoudre ce problème des finances publiques. Moi-même, en étant en crise financière, parallèlement, je dois bien sûr dire ma gratitude parce que mon loyer est payé pour le mois de septembre. Je peux faire ça en septembre, cette méditation philosophique avec du rock and roll, puis envoyer de l'amour, puis méditer à tous les camionneurs qui sont sur la route, les infirmières, beaucoup d'amour aux infirmières, amour, pompiers, les pompiers, les pompiers! Les pompiers, les travailleurs publics qui ramassent le compostage. J'ai 3 services dans mon quartier. Le compostage, le ramassage des poubelles pour la sanitation publique, le ramassage du recyclage. Recyclage, poubelle, compostage. Recyclage, poubelle, compostage. Recyclage, poubelle, compostage. J'ai ces 3 services, pas juste moi-même, mais à Montréal, à travers l'île, la métropole de Montréal. Je dois méditer toujours les fermes, la production alimentaire, les travailleurs publics, bien sûr, qui sont en train de changer des aqueducs. Puis qu'est-ce que je mets sur la table? C'est la TRD, la théorie de la refusion de la dette. Mes chers, j'ai été maudit par l'Asperger's, puis bien sûr, en tant qu'Aspie, ayant l'Asperger's, les Aspies, nous, ceux qui sont, on est neurodivergents, on a des intérêts obsessifs. Et mon intérêt obsessif, c'est la géopolitique. C'est 24/24, C'est 24 heures sur 24 heures, l'analyse, la théorie, la révision des événements géopolitiques. Pour moi-même, en tant qu'analyste et théoricien indépendant en géopolitique, c'est ça qui se passe du matin au soir. Bien sûr, j'ai un autre intérêt obsessif, c'est le sport, c'est l'entraînement physique. La danse, danse, c'est mon sport préféré. Puis je peux danser pendant des heures, comme je peux en parler de la géopolitique, des événements géopolitiques pendant longtemps, pendant des heures sans arrêter. C'est ça la condition de l'Asperger's, parallèlement aussi de cette condition de neurodivergence qui s'appelle l'Asperger's, c'est aussi bien sûr le rock and roll. Je suis artiste. Quand je fais du rock and roll, je peux en faire du rock and roll à mode libre, puis composer des chansons pendant un bon bout, pendant même des heures. Vous me chantez de quoi avec la guitare, puis je peux en faire une composition peut-être, mais je dois m'hydrater aussi, mais parce que c'est mon intérêt obsessif, le rock and roll, et aussi la géopolitique, puis l'entraînement physique. Qu'est-ce que j'appelle la trinité d'intérêts obsessifs en tant qu'Asperger's, puis j'ai prévu la situation qui se déroule maintenant, puis j'ai la preuve pour ça, pour la prouver, parce qu'en 2019, en octobre, ça va faire bientôt 5 ans. En octobre, ça va faire 5 ans quand j'avais conclu qu'il y aura une conflagration internationale, soit en d'autres mots, une troisième guerre mondiale potentiellement, qu'il y aura peut-être une troisième guerre mondiale. C'était ça ma conclusion en 2019, en octobre. Et bien sûr, je dois dire qu'aujourd'hui, la théorie de la refusion de la dette, c'est sorti d'avoir été maudit par l'Asperger, mais je mets sur la table une bénédiction. Puis cette bénédiction, ben, c'est la TRD, la théorie de la refusion de la dette, mes chers. Il n'y a pas d'autre théorie qui peut être implémentée aujourd'hui que la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Vous pouvez vous obstiner tant que vous voudrez, mais on paye 46,5 milliards d'intérêts. Des milliards, c'est un milliard, c'est en 9 zéros. C'est en 9 zéros, un milliard, imaginez-vous. 46 000 millions d'intérêts qu'on paye. Juste l'intérêt sur la dette publique. Fait qu'avant que je dévie sur d'autres sujets, puis encore une fois, j'envoie de l'amour aux pompiers, amour aux fermiers, amour aux ceux qui sont en train de faire de la production alimentaire, tous ceux qui sont sur la route faisant du nettoyage pour la sanitation publique, ceux qui changent les couches dans les garderies, les enseignants, à tous les niveaux, du secondaire, bien sûr, du niveau du secondaire, puis bien de la maternelle au secondaire, à ceux qui sont sur les grues en construisant, baptisant, bien sûr, nos gratte-ciels du futur, puis les travailleurs en construction. Des travailleurs en construction, je suis un partisan, puis je fais appel parce que je veux bâtir, construire 3 bâtiments moi-même. 3 bâtiments que je veux bâtir, c'est le temple, un temple de la déesse, ben, le temple de la déesse oubliée que je veux bâtir pour des événements comme la célébration de l'équinoxe, la célébration pas juste de l'équinoxe, mais la célébration de la pleine lune, la nouvelle lune, puis l'interprétation des rêves, puis pour la danse, le temple de la déesse non sectaire, par exemple, non sectaire, puis bien sûr la maison du dragon, rouge écarlate, la pyramide, j'ai pas besoin de grand chose, mais pour avoir une nouvelle place, pour pouvoir avoir les portes ouvertes pour la création artistique, puis l'analyse, puis la théorie en géopolitique, j'ai besoin de quelque chose de plus gros que ma grotte ici, même si j'ai la gratitude pour l'avoir, parce que je m'en souviens avoir déménagé d'une place où il y avait beaucoup de moisissures, j'étais malade, suicidaire, en dépression, puis en 2017, ça fait 7 ans, je célèbre les 7 ans depuis que j'ai conquis la dépression et être suicidaire, puis j'ai commencé mon entraînement physique. Je vous encourage, je répète tellement ça fait du bien l'entraînement physique, le conditionnement physique, ça fait tellement du bien pour la santé mentale, pour le bien-être, moi-même ayant perdu comme entre 80 et 93, minimum 80, maximum 93,44 livres, pas kilogrammes, là, mais livres. Puis je vous encourage à faire l'entraînement physique, puis point de vue, bien sûr, que je fais appel pour un partenariat public-privé pour financer les gens. À faire de l'entraînement physique, super important, à financer au financement par un partenariat public, les citoyens à faire de l'entraînement physique, puis peut-être à les soutenir, puis à encourager les gens à l'entraînement physique au quotidien, au moins de temps en temps, l'hebdomadaire, un couple de fois par semaine, puis même moi-même, en ayant créé mon propre système d'entraînement physique en 2019, J'ai créé un système d'entraînement physique qui ne requiert aucun équipement, qui est quand même simple à faire, mais ça prend du temps, minimum 1 heure pour le faire. Environ, en moyenne, ça prend 1 heure de temps pour le faire. Puis bien sûr, c'est des pompes, des accroupissements, et qu'est-ce que j'appelle des éperviers. Puis vous pouvez voir des centaines de sessions de cet entraînement physique que moi-même j'ai créé en 2019, parallèlement, bien sûr, avec mon analyse en géopolitique. J'ai créé un système d'entraînement physique pour y aller avec cette conclusion que j'avais conclue en 2019, qu'on se dirige, l'humanité, l'être humain, on se dirige vers une conflagration internationale, sur la Troisième Guerre mondiale. Parallèlement et vis-à-vis, j'ai créé ce système d'entraînement physique en 2019. Puis, vous voyez, vous pouvez voir des centaines de vidéos. Là, je fais de l'entraînement physique dans ma grotte et sur la montagne, ou de là aux alentours de ma grotte de Dragon Arc-en-Ciel et aux alentours de l'île de Montréal, qui est chez nous. L'île de Montréal du Québec, la belle province, puis de l'Amérique du Nord, c'est la chanson rock'n'roll, c'est les Nord-Américains qu'on s'unisse, puis soutenez mon rêve, qui est fondamentalement, quand je dis soutenez le rêve de votre dragon arc-en-ciel, c'est fondamentalement un appel pour un partenariat public-privé. C'est ça fondamentalement que je fais appel, c'est pour un partenariat public-privé, puis ainsi que pour l'implémentation de ma théorie, la trinité de théorie, parce qu'il y en a trois, mais fondamentalement la TRD, que je dois discuter maintenant, la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. C'est quoi la TRD? C'est la théorie de la refusion de la dette. Je vous la présente et je vous la discute maintenant parce que c'est important que je la discute avant que j'oublie, parce que j'y crois vraiment 100%, sans doute, que maintenant, en 2024, ce 11 septembre, on marque 23 ans depuis les attentats qui continuent continuent à faire comme un écho dans le monde, dans le géopolitique. Ça a eu des guerres, la guerre contre le terrorisme, ça continue. Et bien sûr, on voit cette conflagration internationale qui se passe maintenant, mais bien sûr, mes théories, mes initiatives, il faut comprendre que sont fondamentalement pour la défense du collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, soit pour la défense du complexe de civilisation de l'Amérique du Nord, que ce que j'appelle en tant que philosophe le collectif de civilisation de l'Amérique du Nord. Parce que j'y crois vraiment qu'on constitue un collectif de civilisation. Et dans ce collectif, on a fait plusieurs compromis, comme un mariage. On est une famille, des fois on est quand même dysfonctionnel. On se donne, on laisse, on donne un peu, puis on reçoit, on donne. On fait toujours des compromis. Puis la civilisation, c'est un privilège. Ça, c'était ma thèse que j'ai présentée en tant que le docteur du peuple en 2023. Le privilège s'intitule Le privilège de la civilisation. Comme je dis toujours, je répète, juste que je fasse une méditation, juste quand je m'en vais à ma deuxième maison, qui est le Mont-Royal ou Belvédère-Condironac, pour avoir de l'eau potable en haut de la montagne. Tout le travail qui a été fait au 20e siècle, je dois saluer, puis faire une méditation, comment les puits, puis les aqueducs qui ont été mis jusqu'en haut pour qu'on aille, pas juste moi-même, mais moi bien sûr, j'ai l'avantage pour en boire de l'eau potable sur la montagne, puis vous autres aussi, quand vous allez là-bas, jusqu'en haut de la montagne, là, pour avoir de l'eau potable dans les abreuvoirs, puis où je suis allé au Belvédère, ça a été du travail massif, des travailleurs publics, puis je crois vraiment qu'avec l'implémentation de ma TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, on va pouvoir faire davantage du travail dans le 21e siècle. Fait que je vous discute maintenant la TRD, c'est la théorie de la refusion de la dette, puis ça vient encore une fois d'avoir été maudit par l'Asperger, puis c'est une bénédiction qui est sortie de cette malédiction, c'est que l'Asperger, ça fait que les Aspies comme moi-même, on a ces intérêts obsessifs. Et mes intérêts obsessifs, c'est la géopolitique, l'entraînement physique sur la danse, le sport d'une manière générale, puis le rock and roll. Fait que dans le géopolitique, je suis un analyste et théoricien en géopolitique indépendant. Et bien sûr, quand on étudie la géopolitique, on doit avoir une certaine connaissance, savoir des finances publiques. Et aujourd'hui, on paye, écoutez ça, 46,5 milliards au service de la dette. L'intérêt qu'on paye sur la dette publique canadienne, ces chiffres, vous pouvez les constater vous-même par la Banque du Canada. Vous pouvez écrire à McClure, M. McClure, qui est le chef dirigeant de la Banque du Canada, puis vous pouvez lui en parler, puis tous les parlementaires, Parlez-y, écrivez-leur des courriels pour qu'ils se tiennent. Ça, la TRD, la théorie de la refusion de la dette, parce qu'il n'y a pas d'autre solution, je peux vous en dire, on paye 46,5 milliards. 1 milliard, ça a 9 zéros. 1 milliard, c'est 1000 millions. En 2020-2021, on paye 20,3 milliards. En 2020-2021, on paye 20,3 milliards. On est rendu à payer 46,5 milliards d'intérêts. Imaginez-vous, là, de 20,3 fois 2, c'est 40,6. On est rendu à payer 46,5 milliards. C'est plus que le double. Le double, c'est 20,3 fois 2, c'est 40,6. On paye 46,5 milliards. Fait que ça a plus que doublé l'intérêt qu'on paye sur la dette publique. Fait que je peux vous dire que la théorie de la refusion de la dette, c'est la seule et unique solution, puis je vous l'explique maintenant. Il faut que je vous mentionne, super important de mentionner que la TRD de votre dragon arc-en-ciel, ça contient la théorie d'intégration monétaire. Qu'est-ce que c'est la théorie d'intégration monétaire? C'est la théorie financière qui ont fait l'implémentation en Europe. Les Européens ont fait la création d'une nouvelle banque centrale, la Banque centrale de l'Europe, et bien sûr, ils ont fait la création d'une nouvelle monnaie qui s'appelle l'euro. L'euro, bien sûr, c'est la création d'une nouvelle monnaie par la création d'une nouvelle institution, une nouvelle banque centrale. Les Allemands, ils ont laissé faire leur Deutschmark, les Français ont laissé faire leur franc, les Italiens ont laissé faire leur lira. Et plusieurs pays en Europe se sont mis ensemble, ils ont fait de la création de la banque centrale de l'Europe, ils ont fait de la création de l'euro. Donc, MATRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, ça contient la théorie d'intégration monétaire, ce qu'ils ont fait, cette théorie, ils ont fait l'implémentation en Europe. Donc, MATRD, c'est T pour théorie, R pour refusion de la dette. TRD, qui est une théorie financière que je fais appel à tous et toutes de soutenir, de la gauche, de la droite, au centre. C'est la seule et unique solution, car est dû au fait qu'on paye 46,5 milliards d'intérêts sur la dette publique. Aujourd'hui, le 11 septembre 2024, il n'y a pas d'autre solution qui peut nous sortir pour le 21e siècle, d'où qu'on est rendu du point de vue de payer tellement d'argent en intérêt, seulement en intérêt sur la dette publique. Donc la TRD, je vous l'explique, on va prendre toute la dette publique-privée, ma dette en tant que citoyen privé, c'est 10 000, environ 10 000 $. J'ai 10 000 $ de dette. Donc on va prendre ma dette, votre dette, toute la dette de gauche à droite, de l'est à l'ouest, de côte à côte, de tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes, la dette publique ainsi que privée. Bien sûr, toute cette dette publique-privée vue est due au fait que l'argent des États-Unis, la devise des États-Unis, le dollar des États-Unis, est encore la monnaie de change de choix pour le commerce global, les finances publiques, le monde des affaires internationales. C'est encore la devise dans le monde numéro un, dans le monde. C'est encore la devise numéro un. Pour le commerce global, les finances du monde, l'import, l'export, c'est encore la devise numéro un dans le monde. Il n'y a pas d'autre solution. Maintenant, ben, tenez compte, bien sûr, que c'est la seule solution, puis il faut que je vous mentionne que c'est la seule solution, encore une fois, dû au fait qu'on paye 46,5 milliards d'intérêts. Vous pouvez vous ostiner de la gauche à la droite pendant 5 ans, 6 ans, 7 ans, mais il n'y a pas d'autre solution. Donc, on va prendre toute la dette publique-privée, on va faire la conversion dans la devise des États-Unis, car dû au fait qu'encore aujourd'hui, le 11 septembre 2024, la monnaie des États-Unis, le dollar des États-Unis, c'est encore la monnaie de change puis de choix pour le monde des affaires du monde, l'import, l'export, le tourisme, les échanges du monde et bien sûr les finances du monde. Donc, en tenant compte de cela, on va faire la conversion de toute la dette publique privée du Canada en la devise des États-Unis. On va faire cette conversion, on va bien sûr unir et faire l'addition avec toute la dette publique privée des États-Unis. On va faire aussi l'addition avec toute la dette publique privée du Mexique. Du Mexique. Mais s'ils veulent, sinon Canada premièrement, États-Unis, l'Amérique du Nord, comme qu'ils ont fait en Europe, même si on a la volonté, parce que les Européens de la Banque de l'Euro sont nos alliés de défense militaire de l'OTAN. Ça peut être transatlantique, mais fondamentalement, Canada, États-Unis, puis après ça, Mexique, c'est nos frères et sœurs de l'Amérique du Nord, c'est des Nord-Américains, mais au Canada, États-Unis, premièrement, fondamentalement, on va ramasser tout cet argent, on va faire la création d'une nouvelle monnaie qu'on va appeler l'UI. UI en anglais, c'est pareil, UI. En anglais, c'est aussi UI. U point, unité, E point échange universel. Oui, oui. U point unité, E point échange, U point. Oui, oui, oui. Ça va être une nouvelle monnaie, comme qu'on fait en Europe avec l'euro, mais on va l'appeler l'UI. U point unité, E point échange universel, parce que c'est ça l'argent, c'est une unité d'échange. Mais ce UI, ça va être basé sur la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. Fait que UI, U point unité, E point échange, U point. Unité échange universel basée sur la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. Ça va être basé sur la valeur des États-Unis. Tout cet argent, la dette publique privée, ça va fonder une banque, nouvelle banque en Amérique du Nord, une nouvelle banque centrale. On va mettre un taux d'intérêt de 10%, ça peut être 3,33, 1,56, 6,1, 7,70, 9,3, 1,56, en bas de 10 par principe. On va mettre en fonction ce principe de 10% après l'implémentation de la théorie de la refusion de la dette, soit nommée la TRD de votre dragon arc-en-ciel. On va après l'implémentation, on va mettre un taux d'intérêt de 10%. That's all rock and roll, ça peut être en bas de 10, pas plus. Avec cet argent-là, on va pouvoir rebâtir l'infrastructure du collectif de situation d'Amérique du Nord, bâtir plus des aqueducs, financer les gens à faire de l'entraînement physique, financer 50, 100 UI, des unités échanges universelles, puis tenez compte qu'en anglais, c'est UI aussi. Fait qu'en français puis en anglais, UI, on s'entend. Pas besoin de faire la traduction. C'est un UI, deux UI, trois UI. Ben, l'UI, cette unité d'échange universel, cette nouvelle monnaie, ça va être basé sur la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. Ça va s'appeler l'unité d'échange universel. Ben, c'est la seule solution. Avec cet argent-là, on va pouvoir financer les gens à faire du tourisme, financer les gens à l'entraînement physique, rebâtir l'infrastructure de l'Amérique du Nord, des aqueducs, des ponts, des parcs. On va pouvoir mettre de la peinture, puis faire de l'embellissement des villes, puis faire beaucoup de biens publics aussi, parce que fondamentalement, ça prend un partenariat public-privé pour faire cette implémentation. La seule et unique solution, c'est de la TRD de votre dragon arc-en-ciel. C'est la seule et unique solution, mes chers. Je peux vous dire, ben, je vous le mets sur la table, aussi avec des millions, milliards, des bisous, des châteaux et puis du rock'n'roll, la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Avec ça, on va pouvoir financer les deux institutions de partenariat public-privé, soit l'armée de la déesse qui danse pour l'environnement et l'armée du dragon, fondamentalement et principalement seulement pour la défense, la sécurité puis le service, basé sur mes initiatives, mes philosophies, mes protocoles, bien sûr, pour l'Amérique du Nord puis le côte à côte. C'est la seule et unique solution. Il n'y a pas d'autre solution que la TRD, ça je peux vous dire. Ça je peux vous dire. Il n'y a pas d'autre solution. Maintenant, on connaît rendu, le 11 septembre 2024. La dette service, l'intérêt qu'on paye sur la dette publique, c'est sûr qu'à cause des protocoles, des initiatives, des programmes du soutien du citoyen durant la période du COVID, que moi-même ayant survécu la COVID en 2020, février-mars 2020, j'ai eu la COVID, j'ai failli mourir, puis je dois dire bien sûr que c'est à cause de ça, mais c'est allé de... En 2020-2021, on payait 20,3 milliards. 3 ans plus tard, on paye 46,5, ça a plus que doublé, parce que double, 20,3 fois 2, c'est 40,6. C'est 46,5 milliards d'intérêts qu'on paye sur la dette publique. Imaginez-vous, là, c'est tellement un chiffre énorme qu'il n'y a pas d'autre solution que la théorie de la refusion de la dette. C'est une urgence quand même, puis je suis quand même une fierté, puis un certain bonheur de dire, ben j'ai été maudit par l'Asperger's, mais pour l'individu, parce que je suis un individu dans un collectif québécois, canadien, nord-américain, avec mes propres fautes, mes propres connaissances, mes propres luttes, ayant survécu la dépression, j'ai été suicidaire, j'ai été malade de la COVID, puis je souffre maintenant, je vis un stress financier, mais je suis quand même en bonne santé mentale, en bonne santé physique, je m'entraîne quotidiennement, c'est quand même une obsession l'entraînement physique, puis le rock'n'roll, mais j'en fais plus, je fais bien du rock'n'roll, puis je suis un analyste et théoricien en géopolitique, puis j'y crois vraiment à la TRD, la théorie de la refusion de la dette, puis je vous dis encore qu'il n'y a pas d'autre solution, vous vous ostinez tant que vous voudrez, là, mais il faut faire l'implémentation le plus tôt possible de la TRD, là, puis ça presse, comme ça dit, mais pour le 2024-2025, il faut le faire, puis avec cet argent-là, on va pouvoir faire beaucoup de bien, puis pour l'individu, puis pour le collectif aussi, pour le bien commun aussi, pour fonder un esprit de corps. J'ai un esprit de corps avec le Québec, le Canada, puis quand j'ai traversé le Canada de côte à côte, j'ai dit, wow, quelle grosse famille, le Canada, puis tous ceux qui viennent nous rejoindre au Québec, au Canada, puis tellement de choses à voir au Québec seulement, au Canada, puis il faut fonder un esprit de corps, puis j'ai un couple de philosophies, des initiatives que je fais appel à tous et toutes à soutenir. Aujourd'hui, on est il est 3h37 l'après-midi, le 9 septembre, la commémoration, encore une fois, c'était un point de géopolitique, un événement majeur en géopolitique, bien sûr, puis ça a changé le monde, puis ça nous a affecté, si vous ne voulez pas, le Québec, le Canada, puis bien sûr, les guerres qui sont parties, la guerre contre le terrorisme, ça continue aujourd'hui. Je ne vais pas en discuter trop parce que ça prend un café au complet pour discuter la situation, l'intervention en Afghanistan. Puis bien sûr, je peux me prononcer sur des événements d'une manière très spécifique et en détail, mais ça reste que seulement mes initiatives sont fondamentalement pour la défense. La défense, la renaissance de ce que j'appelle le collectif de situation nord-amérique de l'Amérique du Nord, soit le complexe de situation de l'Amérique du Nord, de côte à côte fondamentalement, mais même si je peux être universel, puis j'ai un esprit de citoyen du monde, fondamentalement, je suis québécois, canadien, nord-américain, j'ai vécu ici, je vis ici, l'Amérique du Nord, puis à Montréal, puis un philosophe nord-américain, canadien, québécois, même si je peux étendre, puis avoir un esprit pour la paix mondiale, puis être citoyen du monde, mes initiatives sont fondamentalement pour l'Amérique du Nord, puis la création de cette nouvelle monnaie, puis l'implémentation de ma TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, mes chers, c'est la seule et unique solution, je peux vous dire, puis je le répète parce que je dois le répéter, puis encore une fois, je vous encourage à faire l'entraînement physique, l'hygiène en public, puis si vous allez à la montagne ou Mont-Royal, s'il vous plaît, ne laissez pas les poubelles, parce que hier, j'ai fait bien du bénévolat pour les lapins, les écureuils, les lapins, puis la flore, puis la fonte, qu'on essaie de préserver sur la montagne, puis je veux faire du bénévolat, si vous m'amenez la permission, la peinture puis les pinceaux, j'aimerais ça peinturer, faire de la peinture, là, faire de la peinture sur les tables, la peinture sur les tables, là, peinturer un bleu, un rouge, un arc-en-ciel, quelque chose de très beau, là, wow, ça me fait plaisir parce que ça fait comme 45 ans que vous voyez, on voit les tables, puis les bancs avec les tables sur le Mont-Royal, aux alentours, ce qui est ma deuxième maison, le Mont-Royal. Donc, ils ont besoin d'un peu d'amour puis de la peinture. Ça me fait plaisir de faire du bénévolat. Mais, ah ouais, ma tante, j'appelle ma tante la mairesse, vous allez les prendre. Ça prend un temps. Puis, des fois, la bureaucratie, j'en ai écrit bien des courriels, faire du suivi. Mais des fois, c'est sûr que la bureaucratie, ça en prend de la bureaucratie, mais des fois, il faut bien sûr faire des choses parce que ça presse des fois. Puis j'aimerais ça mettre la peinture, je ferais du bénévolat, mettre la peinture sur les bancs là-bas, là, sur le Mont-Royal, quelque chose de bleu, blanc, juste amenez-moi la peinture, la peinture, le pinceau, puis ça va me faire plaisir mettre de l'embellissement pour le public parce que c'est pas juste chez nous, je considère ça le Mont-Royal ma deuxième maison, mais c'est public. Puis quand je suis dans le public, mais je dois faire attention, faire la gestion de mes symptômes de l'Asperger's parce que je me rapproche. Un des symptômes de l'Asperger, c'est que on se rapproche trop proche des gens. On a tendance à faire la répétition. Puis un autre symptôme, c'est de l'écholélia, ce qui se tire du mot latin écho. On va répéter ce qu'une personne dit, une phrase, complètement une phrase, un paragraphe. On va bien sûr faire la répétition de cette phrase ou d'un paragraphe. Fait que ça peut quand même faire chier, en bon québécois, comme on dit, faire chier un peu le monde qui ne savent pas c'est quoi l'Asperger's, mais c'est pas ça. C'est que un des symptômes de l'Asperger's, c'est l'écholélia. Puis, dernièrement, je fais la gestion depuis 3 ans et demi de mes symptômes d'Asperger. Je leur dis aux citoyens, mais j'ai l'Asperger, juste que vous sachiez. Puis là, s'ils ne savent pas c'est quoi, mais je leur dis c'est quoi l'Asperger pour qu'ils savent, pour qu'ils prennent connaissance, qu'ils prennent note de ma condition de neurodivergence. Puis j'ai mes forces, j'ai mes compétences en géopolitique, c'est mon royaume, mon domaine. Puis j'ai la preuve que j'ai prévu d'une manière, façon générale, par chaque détail, mais j'ai prévu la situation actuelle qui se déroule en ce moment en octobre 2019, quand je fais des analyses au quotidien, à chaque jour, mais je fais après ça mensuel, puis à chaque année, puis à chaque 7 ans, puis à chaque 3 ans et demi, puis à des intervalles de temps, là, mais c'est aussi à tous les jours que je fais des analyses en géopolitique, parce que c'est 24 sur 24, des événements géopolitiques, ça arrive à tous les jours, comme aujourd'hui, l'événement du 9 septembre, c'est un événement majeur en géopolitique, puis parallèlement, hier, la Russie puis la Chine, ils ont commencé des entraînements militaires, des vaisseaux sur les océans. Puis Poutine il a déclaré que c'est le plus grand entraînement militaire du point de vue des navires de l'armée des navires, des océans. Puis dans 30 ans, en 30 ans, qui a dit qu'il n'a pas été si gros dans le temps de vue les armées, bien sûr, de l'eau, les navires militaires, c'est depuis 30 ans. Fait que c'est un événement que je dois suivre, puis je prends note, puis bien sûr, ça montre encore une fois, en faisant avec la Chine, ça montre qu'ils solidifient leur alliance militaire, la Russie puis la Chine, puis qui comptent un sur l'autre. Bien sûr, de plus en plus dernièrement avec tous les événements géopolitiques. Fait que c'est pour ça que je compte sur les Nord-Américains, qu'on s'unisse, puis de côte à côte, d'océan en océan, qu'on fasse l'implémentation de ma TRD, puis qu'on prend un point défensif, puis d'intégration intégrale, puis parallèlement à ma théorie de la refusion de la dette, de faire l'implémentation de la théorie d'intégration citoyenne, ainsi que la théorie de la fusion démocratique, puis bien sûr les autres protocoles et initiatives que j'ai mis sur la table, puis que je continue d'une manière de communiquer en faisant des vidéos sur YouTube, sur Facebook. Puis, encore une fois, je vous encourage à l'entraînement physique. Je salue avec amour et du rock'n'roll les pompiers, les bouchers dans les boucheries, les boulangers, les électriciens, les charpentiers, les infirmières, dans les garderies qui changent les couches, et les infirmières, bien sûr, les docteurs, les travailleurs publics qui ramassent les poubelles, qui font le nettoyage des villes maintenant pour l'embellissement, pour la sanitation publique, et bien sûr, dans les boulangeries, qui font la production alimentaire, les travailleurs en construction, les travailleurs de l'Hydro-Québec sur la route de la gauche à droite, le maintien des réseaux, puis bien sûr des institutions, les pompiers, bien sûr le service de sécurité publique, ça en prend. On n'est pas parfait, loin de là. Chacun, individu dans le collectif, faire des compromis qu'on met sur la table pour la continuité dans la paix et l'harmonie du collectif de situation nord-américain. Mais je vous encourage encore une fois à l'entraînement physique. Puis je finis avec la gratitude. J'ai payé mon loyer pour le mois de septembre. Je dois dire ma gratitude. J'ai une nouvelle table. Je dois la polir un peu, cette nouvelle table. Un nouveau lit. Merci à mon ami anonyme qui mérite d'être 7 fois plus riche que Céline. Si je fais 1 million, je donne la moitié, 50%. Puis c'est 3 nouvelles choses, bien sûr, que j'ai chez nous. Puis je vous encourage à l'entraînement physique. That's it pour aujourd'hui. Le rock en septembre, avec amour. Les Nord-Américains, il faut qu'on s'unisse. North Americans Unite. Rock and roll.